Michelle, you ready? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, April 24th, 2018 caucus meeting for the City of Brook Park. Michelle, please call the roll.
Scott?
Here.
Bergia?
Here.
Orcutt?
Here.
Stem?
Here.
Mancini?
Here.
Poindexter?
Here.
Salvatore?
Here.
If everyone would, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carl, how are you?
Moving to item 3, approval of minutes of preceding meetings. We have one set from the regular caucus meeting held on April 10th, 2018.
Motion to approve those regular caucus meetings from April 10th.
Support.
Motion to approve, properly supported. Discussion.
Who supported?
Mr. Poindexter.
Okay.
Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Bergia?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Meeting minutes have been approved. Item 4, discussion. First item we have is Brewer Garrett Recreation Center update per Council President Vecchio. I believe.
Joseph.
Matt, I can't remember your last name off the top of my head, but please come to the microphone.
Chairman.
Yes.
Joseph.
Mr. Salvatore.
Motion to go out of regular order of business and allow Brewer Garrett to speak at the caucus meeting.
Support.
Motion to go out of the regular order of business, which I don't know that we need to, but allowing Mr. Joseph to speak from the podium regarding it. Thank you. Mr. Joseph, if you would, please state your name and address.
Matthew,
Hold on one second. I'm sorry,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Call the roll on Mr. Salvatore's motion. Was there a second?
Yes.
I'll support it.
Mr. Orcutt did.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Bergia?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Okay, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Mr. Joseph, if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Matthew Joseph, 6800 Eastland Road, Middleburg Heights, Ohio. Thanks again, Council, for having me. But as we stated, just wanted to give you a brief update on where the Recreation Center project stands. I'll keep it nice and short. Give you a quick overview of each of the areas and where they all are today. So first and foremost, City Hall. The punch list inspection was actually completed today. The furniture installation starts tomorrow and will be completed by the end of the week. Once that's in, the City Hall will be totally completed, including all of the changes that we've discussed and gone through with since the last time I was here. City Council is about 85% complete. That was the one that had a few more changes, including the vestibule. If any of you have been over there recently, you can obviously see the work going in. They've got the hole punch in the wall, and they got the frame up. That's about conservatively 4 to 5 weeks from completion. We've already got the lighting, the walls, the paints, and the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing all completed. We're just waiting on the new dais will arrive next week, and then the flooring and patch materials will also arrive. That will take about 2 weeks to be completed, and once that's done, it's just throwing in the final ceiling tiles, trim and cleaning, and it'll be ready to go. So that 4 to 5 weeks is a bit on the conservative side, but obviously want to make sure that we're not giving you too tight of a time frame. The clerk's office is 99% complete. The furniture installation also will begin tomorrow. Same thing, once that furniture is installed, that area will be completed as well. The corridors have the new paint, wall base, and ceiling tiles all complete. The lighting change out is about 85% complete as of today. By the end of the week, they'll be completed 100%. With the gyms, the mini gym LED lighting starts tomorrow. That'll be about a 2-week duration to make that change out, and the main gym will follow that, and that'll take about 3 weeks. Once again, we obviously worked with the staff of the rec to make sure we weren't interrupting any of the events going on in there, or at least if we were, making it as unobtrusive as possible. And then the locker rooms, the full repair for the whirlpools are being handled directly by the city. Essentially, we helped to bring in the pricing for that, but we ultimately recommended to the city to take that contract directly, because at the end of the day, that was the most cost-effective way. So we'll help facilitate that that is actually going directly through the city, and that is going to have 100% warranty on all the work. And we've already replaced the heaters, chemical feed, and the broken circulation pumps. So those whirlpools in that spa area will be in great shape once that is completed, and that is already in the process as well of that work getting done. So that's the brief update on where everything stands. As you can tell, we're very close to that finish line. A few more punch list items and a few things that we're waiting on that come in next week, and then we'll be able to wrap up the project.
Thank you. Question from Mr. Joseph. Mr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to Matt. Matt, again, thanks for coming, and thank Andy for coming. If I could, I know that I'm there every day, and a great job, by the way, too.
Thank you.
I know Andy's there every day, and I just got a couple questions, and I know Councilman Salvatore asked a lot that I think is important at this point. I see the good progression there. It seems like in the past month, things have really moved up. What's gone really good, and what has not gone really good over there?
Really, since as I said the last time I was here, we had a few outstanding changes that kind of stalled some things, and that's what went bad. If you had to say it, is that it stalled some of the work that was going on around it. But once all those decisions were made and the city decided to go through with some of the changes that the mayor and our team had discussed, we were able to fly kind of right through all that. And as you can see over there, obviously, as you mentioned, you're over there every day, and you've seen it in live action. Everything's moved very quickly. So really, we're not at a point where I would say there's any negatives to point out. It's going to be a very aesthetically positive project at the end, but all of the stuff, the stuff that we care about, the guts of it, the mechanical, that's going to be where you're going to see a great impact, not just on how comfortable the space is, but ultimately the cost in running and operating the space moving forward.
So you stated lighting, but like the electrical, computer inputs, all that stuff, we're moving pretty well on all that too, so it's almost moving ready.
Yeah, it sounds like going, the AV is actually is the one thing that's not under us. That is gone directly through the city. The city brought in a team to do all the AV, the computer, and the wiring for the new city hall, new city council. But we've coordinated with them, and from all accounts, it seems to be going in a good direction. And as soon as that's done, you should have full capabilities over there. Once again, though, I would check in with them for any more details.
All right, and one more thing before I let my colleagues go. I don't know how closely connected you are to it. Maybe Andy has a little more on it, but the whirlpools, is there any diagnostic decision on that or status on that?
Yeah, that was the last thing I touched on in the spa area. The whirlpools are being fully repaired completely, and that's in the process right now. If anyone peeked in there now, you could actually see they're lifted up out of the ground.
They're on stilts, metal stilts.
Yeah, and they're being completely. We put in the new heaters, chemical feed, the circulation pumps, and then the city is handling directly with Ohio Pool the full repair of the actual pools themselves. They're going to be, almost new at the time. By the time they get put back in and run, because we wanted to make sure that once they're up and running, we were fighting leaks here and there that, you don't see them until you put water in them and start realizing the water level's going down faster than it should. We wanted to make sure that got rectified. Like I said, we worked with Ohio Pool to make sure that they had the solution in place, and then we facilitated moving them directly through the city, ultimately because that was more cost effective than running them through us.
All right, Matt, Andy, I appreciate you guys coming. I'll let my colleagues go. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Mr. Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too would like to thank you for coming out. I know it's hard to get yourself ready for a meeting on short notice. We just asked the mayor last week if you could be here, and thank you for showing up so quickly. But this project is important to all of us, and most important to the residents. It appears as if your punch list that you mentioned tonight, that the longest thing, the thing that's going to take the longest to complete was 4 weeks, and that's the door. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly?
The 4 to 5 weeks is just the city council in general. Actually, the things that will take the longest in that area, that's going to push that out to that 4 or 5 weeks conservatively, is the dais, which will come in next week, and then just because that we can't do the floor patching obviously until everything is installed. That's the ones the material will come in next week, and then that'll take about 2 weeks to be completed.
So none of those items have hit the punch list yet. This is just the punch list items that we're talking about tonight. Is that correct? I mean, the things you just mentioned,
The punch list I mentioned, the punch is completed today. That was the punch list for City Hall specifically.
okay. So worst case scenario, we're 4 weeks out plus the things you just mentioned now.
Yes.
Okay, and is the furniture for City Hall, is that on site already? Has it been delivered?
That will come in tomorrow, and it'll be completed by the end of the week.
Okay, that's pretty quick.
Yeah, they are extremely efficient in bringing in the furniture.
Well, when would you anticipate, with the completion of the move from City Hall to the new City Hall, would that take place prior to the project being completed, or will that hold up anything?
Once the furniture is in by the end of the week, once again, the AV side of things with your computer setup and the phone lines and all that, because we don't control that, and I don't know exactly where that stands. That may delay some things, but essentially once we turn that space over, say the AV is done by the end of the week, once the furniture's in, you are absolutely free to make that move right away. You don't have to, there's nothing precluding you from making that move while the rest of these next couple weeks are wrapped up over in the City Hall or the City Council area.
That leads to another question. Are we getting new phones over there? Or are we gonna move the old phones over there?
Honestly, that's not something, that's something that you'd have to ask the group doing the AV.
Okay. So I'll save my question for Ted. I see him in the background. Yes, I think he's calling me on his cell phone now. I don't have my phone with me. But I was just curious, because if we shut the one phones off and they're not ready to be turned on the other end, we could be virtually shut down unless we do it over a weekend, so.
Right, absolutely.
Okay, well, that's all I have for right now. Thanks again for coming out.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Anyone else with questions for Mr. Joseph? Mr. Orcutt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Joseph, for coming out this evening. I basically just wanted to state that I've been walking around and checking on the project. Things are moving really smooth over there. I want to say thank you to your company for everything that's been going on in there. It looks very nice, looks perfect. And we talked about coordination with AV, and I appreciate you doing that. I know you guys are nothing but a professional company over there. Quick question about coordination with our service department. I seen that the hole got punched through the wall. The sidewalk is being done by the city, I believe.
Correct.
Is all that being coordinated together as well? Is that something that's going to be within that time limit of 4 to 5 weeks?
Yes.
Perfect, excellent. And then one last question is, do you see anything else that has come up on this project that, any big changes that we would have to make as a city to, reappropriate some dollars for that project?
Any big changes that might happen as a result of the project you're talking about? No, as far as we're concerned, once the project is completed, you'll have full control of that facility. There's nothing that's going to change as far as inhibiting the city to now where you're going to have to allocate dollars to correct anything or allow you to do something else. You're going to still have the full functionality, and you'll actually be adding, obviously, significant abilities to function for other things, such as the City Hall and the City Council. But once again, the way we're doing it is to make sure we're having as little impact as possible on the existing space. So I don't anticipate there being any financial hardships moving forward as a result of the project.
Great, perfect. Well, I did actually come up with one more question with what you were saying about functionality there. Is there going to be a workstation, obviously for your company to maintain that contract that you have with our city, you need to be in control of automation, turning lights on and units on and powering things up. Is there going to be a workstation that a service department member or staff member from the recreation center will be able to access for that automation system to turn? If we extend our hours, we're open on Sunday, for example, can we turn those rooftop units on and heat the building up to 70 versus whatever your setback may be?
Yeah, we'll absolutely, once this project is completed and we have that turnover to where our service division continues the ongoing preventative maintenance, we will absolutely work with the city, and it'll be one of those things where we'll ask the city, who do you want to have access, or where do you want to have access? At the end of the day, it's still your building. We're not going to restrict you in any way. So if there's an event that requires the city to make any changes, you will have either personnel or an area that allows you to make those changes.
Perfect. Thank you very much for coming out. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Orcutt. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, Mr. Joseph, I appreciate your time. Council, I'd like to entertain a motion to have Mr. Hurst, our building commissioner, come to the podium and also speak on the AV side of this.
Motion so made.
Support.
Motion on the floor, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Mr. Hurst, please state your name and work address.
Ted Hurst, 5590 Smith Road, Brook Park.
Thanks for coming. Council, questions for Mr. Hurst?
Just,
Mr. Salvatore?
just the one on the telephones.
The phones at the new city hall and council offices will be new phones.
Okay.
It's part of the system. We have a meeting set for Friday to meet with the computer people and the phone people on the transition from these buildings over to those buildings. The plan, I guess I can, if the mayor doesn't mind indulging me speaking for him, the plan is to move part of City Hall first, get them up and running, and move the other part secondary. How that's gonna happen, we'll know Friday after we meet with the phone people, the people that are handling our phones, and the computer people. Because we gotta run a split system here for a little while if we're gonna do that. So,
Thank you, Ted. I
that's the end.
appreciate that.
Ted, I have a question regarding the AV setup inside the rec center. Who is the company that's going to be doing it? And do we know when they're going to be coming in, or if council is going to have a walkthrough to meet with these people?
The AV contract was let last year to Via Sound. All of their wiring is installed in the ceiling of the council area, the community room. I don't know if both screens or all three screens are up. They're in the process of putting the screens up now. Camera mounts are in, speakers are in, and once it's all up and running, there will be a training session for Michelle or whoever's going to be operating the AV part of this process. It's all going to be automated systems, so there's not a whole lot of work to it. It's a matter of hitting a button. If somebody's giving a presentation, Michelle will hit a button, and the screens will come down, the cameras will come on, the lights will dim. She doesn't have to leave her seat. And whoever's at the podium can give their PowerPoint presentation. It'll show on the screens for the audience, and you'll all have your monitors in front of you.
Okay, so obviously to expand on that a little bit further, Michelle will be controlling the cameras and the audio sounds then?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank
All
you.
of that's computer operated. She just has to hit the button.
Thank you. Mr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the floor to Ted. Ted, thank you for coming also. And I know you've been there, almost every day. Absolutely. You put your time in sometimes a few times a day. And a couple things I wanted to ask. I know the HVACs are one of the first thing that went up there. How'd that work out pretty well up there on that roof?
It went well. There were some struggles to begin with just because of the age of what we're dealing with, but the units set well. Brewer did a great job getting them set. There's some remaining punch list items on the roof that have to be finished. I've been through that. I'm going to be continuing to go through that. I went through the punch list walkthrough of City Hall today and the clerk's offices. As soon as the furniture goes in, I'll do another punch list because things get dinged and banged and nicked and scratched, and that'll all get taken care of. But I would say conservatively, Monday morning, City Hall and clerk's offices, excluding computer and phones, will be ready to go.
Okay, and on them rooms, and I'll get to the community center, or I'll get to the community room in a minute, but space-wise, you hear a lot of people say, well, there's not gonna be enough space. As you did your walkthroughs, as you seen the construction, what did you see there? I mean, are we gonna be okay in that field?
Are we referring to space in City Hall?
Yeah, I'm talking space in City Hall, maybe them offices there over by the, what would you consider the court?
The clerk's office,
Yeah,
the
clerk.
council clerk and the clerk of courts,
The courts, yeah.
they all have more room than they have right now. Well, except for Michelle. Sorry, Michelle, you're not going to have quite as much room. But ultimately, everything was designed as efficient workstations. This is a discussion that the mayor and I have had, and there's a directive going to the employees now that when we move to City Hall, we're moving to City Hall with what we need to operate.
Okay.
The rest will stay behind until we allocate places for it to go. They're workstations, and they're designed to be efficient workstations.
And you and Andy today, I want to thank you both. You gave me a nice little view of that community room. Will that community room still be a multi-purpose room?
The intent from day one was that that room will remain a community room first, and accessory to that will be a council chambers and a courtroom.
So the activities we have there and the meetings we have there will still stand still a year from now?
The plan is to keep it, and I know Mark can speak on this. The plan is to still have that room for baby showers, wedding showers, pee-wee basketball, aerobics. Those types of things are still going to be able to be done in that room.
I'm sure I speak for many. We want to see that used if we could 24/7. So, and Ted, one more question, if I may, Mr. Chairman. Is you being there every day and somewhat the liaison between the city, what do you see good and bad there? I mean, what do you like? What do you think that maybe not like? I don't need to catch you off guard, but
I can tell you the project is a nice project. Is it what everybody wants? No, not at all. Is it what everybody needs? It's going to be what they need because it's going to be what we have. We've taken a situation as a city and did what needed to be done to save the rec center and to consolidate operations to save dollars. Is it what everybody likes? No, not at all. Some people are going to like a lot of it. Some people are going to like none of it. But it is what it is. And for what we've got, I think we got a good deal with, we got some good workmanship done over there.
and I'm sure I speak for maybe many up here, and hopefully the mayor and a lot of people in the city. Hopefully we do a lot more over there too, as the finances and things led us over there. I mean,
I think that's the goal, is the expansion, to try and create that environment again.
that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Mr. Scott?
Hey, Teddy. Hey, Matt, thanks for coming. And Andy, I'm tired of, me and Matt's gone, we've had many communications. Teddy, real quick, any issues when they were tearing that opening into the side of the building?
No.
I've done that before.
No.
I've been on jobs where,
They handled it perfectly. They knew what they were doing. Obviously, you don't hire people that don't know what they're doing. The bricklayers did a fantastic job supporting the wall above, getting it open, getting the lintels in, and
Oh.
toothing it back in place.
that's the issue. The little one, okay?
Yeah, everything went.
Okay. Now, I saw them over there laying out for the sidewalk
Yep.
today, Bocce and his buddy.
Yes.
What are you looking on that? Probably a couple weeks on that?
Well, we got to be somewhat weather sensitive here. I know that the mayor and Randy and those guys are just waiting for the right opportunity to get it prepped and get it ready to go. So as soon as the weather cooperates and the manpower is available, they'll be over there working. You may see them over there working a day, setting some forms, and then doing something another day, getting back, set some more forms, but they're geared up and ready.
Yeah, so, like I said, I saw them over there today, so I know we're moving forward. That's all I got. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Mr. Poindexter?
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to the building commissioner. So all the furniture going in the city hall and in the council chambers, is that all brand new furniture?
That's all new furniture.
Okay.
It's sitting in the warehouse on Brook Park Road, waiting to be delivered tomorrow morning.
So like, what about workers, like personal effects, files, and are they moving that over there themselves, or is there a moving company hiring?
The personal stuff from their offices, we just went through this moving the building department. The service department did help us move in some of the heavy stuff. I'm sure that it can be arranged to get a truck there that we can load a bunch of stuff on, boxes, file boxes, load up a truck, take it over, and unload it. There isn't a whole lot going from City Hall to those offices over there immediately.
Okay.
The only thing going over there is what is absolutely necessary to work with and what we need today and tomorrow. The stuff we need next week, we'll bring over.
So we're not looking to hire a company to move everybody
Not
over?
that I'm aware of at this point. I don't
Okay.
think there's a need. If it becomes a need, then we'll end up looking at it. But at this point, there isn't enough stuff going that's going to need a mover at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Poindexter. Mr. Bergio?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and through the chair to our commissioner. Ted, do you know offhand what the capacity is of the community room or what it was? Have we lost much as far as occupancy?
No,
We have not lost much?
no. We haven't lost occupant. I'll refigure the occupancy load, but I don't believe we've lost
Okay.
anything as far
All right.
as the occupant load.
Good news. Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Just for clarification, the stage is figured differently than the occupancy for the room.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the old stage is no longer a stage, but we have part of it as a dais, which is occupant load as well. So I think it's going to offset and work out to where we're at the same number.
So that's utilized
Relatively close.
in the same way then, so I didn't really interfere with any occupancy then, because it's just basically the same area.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bergio. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman.
Mayor?
Thank you. Ted, I want to thank you and Director Mark Gillett. You both have done an outstanding job helping me out over there as far as making sure that project, comes to fruition, completion in a good manner. I'd also like to thank Brewer Garrett for their cooperation. But again, you and Mark Gillett have done an excellent job over there, kind of being our project managers, and I just want to say thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. All right. I don't see anything else in this. I'll take a motion to go back to the regular order.
Motion, so, support.
Motion to go back to the regular order of business, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion was discussed, Mr. Chairman.
Support.
Motion on the floor that this was discussed, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Moving on to item number 2, economic development update. Mayor Gamella, per Council President Vecchio, in attendance is Economic Development Commissioner, Mr. Adams. Mr. Adams, if you'd like to come to the podium, please state your name and your work address.
Good evening, Council. My name is Scott Adams, Economic Development Commissioner, City of Brook Park, 6161 Engle Road, Brook Park, Ohio.
Council floor is open for questions.
Are you going to give a report first, or?
Well, what I did is, last Thursday, I dropped off a copy of the report that I would give you. Did Council have a chance to review it? I could read it to you if that would help you.
I don't think reading it's necessary, Mr. Adams.
Okay.
If everybody's gotten a chance to look it over.
Okay.
Questions? We'll start with Mr. Orcutt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Ford Motor Company has some construction management trailers that have hit their lot. Do you know anything, or can you give us any information on what's going on over at the Ford land over there?
When I inquired about that, Councilman, I was told that there's other individuals working about the vacant property. There was no disclosure of who they are or what they're going to be doing, but it seems to be it's going to be there at least for 6 months. That structure looks like they might be doing some, again, total speculation, some drilling, some working around the area.
Well, that's good. We're seeing some movement. That's good. That I see something going on over there.
Right,
It's
right.
been-
I'm not sure whose personnel they are or if they're a contract through Ford. Again, it's like need-to-know basis at this point with what they're working on over there. As soon as I get some information, I'll definitely share it with council.
I had a quick question. That NASA, the Glenn section that you gave us here, and talks about all the money that was appropriated out of Washington, and they're funding some new programs over there.
Right.
And it sounds very exciting in your report here.
Right.
There seems like there's going to be a lot of construction over there. How long is that construction going to go on for?
Well, it seems the project, and again, they haven't brought any plans forward at this point in time, they just got funded. It's approximately 17 million additional dollars. I know some of those dollars are gonna go towards the fledgling robotics program. We're looking forward to hear more about that. There was even an inquisitive questioning at the last Aero Zone meeting from one of the lead engineers about using some space for the robotics program over in the Aero Zone, right there on Apollo Drive. So we're hoping for some expansion into that. That'll turn into more than just talk, turn into jobs. As far as the construction program over there, it's a rather large facility they're going to build. I would speculate 18 to 24 months, but again, we'll get you some information on that as it comes available.
Great. And then just one other question, because I'm sure my colleagues have a bunch of questions as well. First of all, thank you, too, for this report. This report was very, very well done. The question I had was the new investment in Brook Park. Looks like you're talking with the people at Brookgate
Yes.
about a family restaurant possibly coming in there?
Yes, we had a meeting late last week. When this was prepared, it was a day before they came in. So the update with that, I met with the Glimsher Group after a lot of phone calls. I got a hold of their senior vice president in charge of real estate, laid it on the line that Brook Park needs some answers concerning Brookgate. There's a lot of questions we have about the future of the property and what's your goals with it. It is one of their newer property acquisitions. They own 18 properties, 9 of them here in Ohio. They have one in Lander Haven, which they're redoing in the look of Crocker Park, if anyone's familiar with that, the outside shopping center areas. And he said they're getting delayed on that project as far as costs. They have approximately 7 million square feet under roof in their portfolio. So that being said, we brought them into the city. The mayor and I sat down with them, and we went over with also his site manager. She's over the 9 sites. In fact, I'm going up there tomorrow to meet with them to walk the property at Brookgate. Wasn't satisfied with a lot of the answers they gave us, to be honest with you. But we did prod them about the 25,000 square foot former Harpo's for family style restaurant. They hem-hummed a little bit. They said they've been advertising. They wanted more of a family-centered restaurant, and which we agreed. It'd be nice to have your family be able to go to something with you and in a different kind of setting. Nothing against sports bars or anything. They're all fun places to go, but every once in a while you want to have a little more of a sit-down situation. They explained to us that franchise restaurants don't like to go in the row, which means in a line. They like to stand out on a loan, which at the point he said that, the mayor said, why don't we build one out in front of Brookgate? And it was as though it was an idea they never thought of. And they looked at each other and they said, why don't we build one, an outbuilding out front? So then the discussion quickly switched over to possible franchise, because it would have its own standalone building. Would be directly out, probably to the left of the main entrance coming through the center, if you follow me. And so some speculation has been made on that, no promises, but they're going to look into it with their construction arm, their financing arm, to see what something like that could be done. No names were mentioned as far as style of restaurant, but franchise restaurant opens a big door. What would happen with Harpo's, he says, we'll continue to put in another restaurant clientele in there, because restaurants like to be by restaurants. They kind of feed off each other's advertising. The smaller unit, he says they have several individuals interested, but no one on paper at this point. So after I tour it tomorrow, kind of insisted on it, wanted to walk it with their senior leasing agent. He's from Pennsylvania. He's coming in not only for Brookgate, but from one other property. And we're going to meet at 11 tomorrow, and we're going to walk the entire facility as far as see what his knowledge is and what he's after, and how the Office of Economic Development and the city can help them grow Brookgate. So I look at it as a partnership. I mean, it's their property, it's their responsibility, but we as a city share that responsibility to a small degree. You know, they're our neighbors, and I put out the hand of friendship and said, listen, let us help you develop this. That opened another door, which created a discussion about maintenance on the property, beautification of the property. I asked them to rate the property. There's ratings, A, B, C, and D, okay, for properties like this. And he said we're definitely rated a C. I said, what do we have to do to get it to a B? He says, we're talking about that right now. I said, fine. So what we'll need to do is continue to push them, prod them along. They didn't ask for any financial support or any zoning changes at this point. There was some good discussion about the BP on the corner, but we've already working with the law director and the building department to negate that property and to reopen it for population, hopefully for a different use, other than the gas station at this point. So that's a little bit of what we discussed on Thursday, and hopefully I'll have more information for you. Feel free, council, to call me anytime, as Mr. Scott has done, and Mr. Orcott, most of you have called me. Please, and I'll be glad to give you any information I have concerning that project as it comes available.
Another question arose when you were talking about that. I was going to lead into the BP, the existing BP gas station.
Right.
I'm glad to hear that you're working with the law department on that.
Right.
Thank you for bringing up the cleanliness of that parking lot, because I think
Definitely.
we need to, that
Definitely.
needs a little attention.
Well, we got into a discussion about sight line. People don't want trees in the way, and they don't want bushes in the way. As you're driving by, they want to see signage. And I compared it to other properties that have all that going for it, including Crocker Park, including their renderings of Lander Haven on the east side. I says, these don't have to be jumbo trees or pine trees. We just need some green life in here. Give it that look that people want to be a part of it, other than just drive by it. Again, it'll boil down to tenancy, too. It depends who your tenants are. Is there a reason for me to pull in there and go do business in the first place?
And then just one last thing, and then I'll give it back to the chair here, was that Glimshare Group,
Yes.
do they own that land where the gas station's at?
No, that's a standalone, and it's owned by a consortium that owns BP gas stations.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming. I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome,
That's all I have right
Councilman.
now, Mr.
Thank you, Mr.
Chairman.
Orcutt.
Thank you.
Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner Scott, for coming out. And I like your report. Hopefully, this will be something that we do on a quarterly basis, because it's very informative. You did answer most of my questions about Brookgate Shopping Center.
Okay.
The only comment that I would make relative to Brookgate is I like the idea of an outbuilding, similar to the place to be.
Right.
Provided that the construction of a new building falls within the parking, make sure we have enough parking. And
Exactly.
if Brookgate owns or sets up that building, we won't have to worry about crossover agreements and things like that we went through with the place to be. So I think, looking at that, we're definitely on the right track. Moving forward through your report, I see Tim Horton's name shows up on here, and I
Yes.
know that their name has been bounced around as long ago as about a year ago. It was the first time I heard that name, as far as looking at Brook Park. How are you doing in that area? Are they just in talking stages? Are you making any headway with them, or?
Well, we're pushing them towards calendar at this point, but I'd like to thank Councilman Scott for bringing it to our attention. Immediately made the calls, tracked down the gentleman who was very familiar with Brookgate. He's also one of the senior vice president and partner in it. They have 105 franchises to plant, and all over Northeast Ohio. So they're rather large. They bought a large chunk, and they call themselves Cleveland TH, Cleveland Tim Hortons. Very professional group of people. The background of the senior vice president that I spoke with, he years ago cut his teeth as a leasing agent at RMS Leasing, if that reminds you. That was Brookgate Leasing Company way back when. So we had a good discussion about the city of Brook Park, what it brings to the table, and what's important for traffic in the AM side and the PM side and the demographic mapping, or DM as they call it. And they're very interested in a couple locations. We haven't finalized those locations, but he did send out his property manager, a young woman by the name of Brandy Harmon, which we had a meeting at the at the mayor's office. Councilman Scott was there, and I believe a couple of our building commissioner was there, and we went over in great detail with her what they were looking for. And we told them that we have it here in Brook Park. So I drove her around for the afternoon, and we looked at every available spot, even ones that aren't technically available, but we looked at those too. It's about location. And she settled on two very nice spots, and I don't want to bring it out publicly at this point. But then she said, I'm going to take this information back, and she had this really neat app where she could push a button and get traffic count right at that point in time. It was kind of interesting and very professional. And so we spent about 3 hours together, and she said, I'll call you in a day, and she did, and we reconnected, and she explained to me that their 2018 calendar is full. There's a possibility of a 19, maybe a 2020, but she says we haven't made a decision yet, and she reiterated those 2 spots. So my work now is to get those 2 spots ready and go back to her. We'd have conversations every 2 weeks, and I'm going to keep her going, and we're going to keep trying to bring Tim Hortons, because I think they would find a wonderful home here, and I think the people of Brook Park would really enjoy this facility. It's about a $2 million investment in building, and then you have your land cost. And I said they'll employ 20 to 30 jobs of this, and I'll be honest, 10 of them are full-time, 20 to 30 be part-time. But it'd be very encouraging for our young people to be able to work with such a first-rate, highly rated franchise as they begin their working career. So,
I couldn't agree with you more. I think Tim Hortons would be a good fit for Brook Park.
right.
Going through the rest of your report, I'm just going right to the bottom of the last page. Aggressively market the city of Brook Park worldwide.
Right.
How are we doing in that area? And if you can't share that yet, I understand, but if you can, I'd certainly like to hear what we're doing.
Okay, a couple of the things we're going to do is I have a meeting scheduled for July with the dean from BW, Mr. Our former mayor's alma mater. She's the dean of IT and computerings, and I'm going to meet with her, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to develop a footprint on international internet. At this point, what I'd like to do is create a social media presence for the marketing effort for the city of Brook Park, and then begin that effort by using their interns. And that'll be saving a lot of tax dollars, plus give them some real life experience working for a city, which is enticing to them. If unsuccessful there, I've also made some inquiries to talk to her counterpart at Tri-C and also at Berea Mid-Park High School. So I want to begin to bring these young people in, who better to understand social media terrifically. I mean, seriously. Come in, build that for us. We've already begun revamping the city website, and there's a lot more work to be done on the economic development page, but we're getting it started to where it'll be a one-stop shop. We're also looking at using the services of worldwide brokers like Cresco, Wakeman, and Cushman. They can give us a presence on their site for any available properties in the city of Brook Park that if the city wanted to move into a listing situation with, especially in the opportunity zone. That will help us sell more of a global audience, those that would be dealing in that area, dealing with NASA right out the gate. On a more local level, what I'd like to do is get our footprint, and I have to compliment Councilman Bergio. He reminded me of something that I thought of, and I had put on a note, and I put it in my briefcase, and that was to actively market the community. And I've already done the research. The mayor's preliminary approved a small trade show booth that I would like to use. It's kind of one comes out of a box, and there it is. Okay, it's real simple, real cost effective. And start working these trade shows. We have trade shows from individuals from all over the country come to these trade shows downtown. You have Medical Mart, you have the County Convention Center, you have the IX Center right in our backyard. And there's a way for us, and as part of my research, I did a training down at the county where all the economic development people were invited. And we spent a better part of a day down there, and I kind of asked people, like, you might remember Vince Adamas. He's now vice president with GCP, Greater Cleveland Partnership, which is part of Team NEO. They help market Northeast Ohio. And I suggested to him this idea. He said, fantastic. He says, you won't believe how many contacts you can make at one trade show. So I know it from attending them as an attendee, but now as someone there actively pursuing business. We just had one in town that was manufacturers of fasteners. One of my early jobs in my life a long time ago was selling screws, nuts, and bolts. RBS, Russell, Bursell, and Ward, RBS and W. And these manufacturers came from all over the world to go to this trade show. So what's the thought there? The thought is that if they're willing to come here to sell their goods, That must mean they don't have some in location to sell them. Perhaps they'll sell up a warehouse, or they'll set up a manufacturing plant. Whatever works out to their benefit, we can secure it here in Brook Park. We have the corridors. We have the tax base. We have all the things they need to connect to those businesses. The power, the water, the transportation. We have the entire hub right here in our backyard. So that would give them that presence that they may not have in Northeast Ohio, let alone North America at this point in time. So that's part of what I hope to begin in the next 3 months as we move forward.
My last question is, actively pursue federal, state, and county grants. Are you working on any right now?
The one grant, I worked in a small position with our chief of police for the DARE SRO grant application, which was submitted. I've just become the administrator. It's a little bit of a process on grants.com, which is the federal grant gateway. And at that point, now that that's set up, we're going to begin to actively review and pursue federal grants. The state grants, I'm working through the State Department of Development for grant opportunities. Also, Metro Parks has some grants, which is kind of interesting for playgrounds, which I'm trying to find out some more information on. And the Cuyahoga County grant system is set up. Most of these grants you apply this year. There's a few, but most of them you'll apply this year and receive in 19. So it's a ramp up time frame, hopefully receive something before the end of the year type of thing. It's substantial grants.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Mr. Bergia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, Scott, thank you for being proactive in trying to market our city and our economy and that. I think there's so much, if we look at the positive, there's so many more positive than the negatives in our city. We need to accentuate that. We have the interstate, we have the airport, rapid transit, transportation. It's just such a great location. Yeah, I think that's something that not everybody maybe realizes. On the outside, we realize it, but thank you for pursuing that. I had some questions about Brookgate.
Okay.
You answered some of them already. The Glimker Group, are they overseas group, or did you meet them personally?
Yes, I met with the senior vice president. He was here. We met for over an hour in the mayor's office with his site agent. She runs the 9 properties here in Ohio. They're from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Okay. Right. My understanding was that they weren't really too flexible about their leasing and the businesses. I think maybe even Harpo's, maybe that's one reason that they moved. I'm not sure. But have you talked about that? Because to retain businesses and to attract businesses, I think it's better to make a little less money on leases and have a business there prospering than just being too rigid. Has that been discussed at all?
We did discuss the square footage cost and the retention areas as far as Mark's, Advance Auto, Rosie's. They're all right now in long-term leases, which they said are basically costed out at the sea level. So he says they're very competitive in the marketplace.
Okay.
You have GNC in there and a decent lease, he said. In the smaller shops, he says we have a different tier for those. We're aggressive, he said, because we're a for-profit company, but we also understand long-term means less build-out, less headaches for the neighborhood, pretty much.
So do you have the impression that they want to work with us to make the area prosper and not just have empty buildings?
Yes, they want to have 100% occupancy.
They do?
They do.
Okay.
And I see it from a standpoint of, because we came right out and asked them, and I said, and the mayor echoed it also, is this property one of those properties? I kind of trapped the guy a little bit. We said, your other properties are A and B. This is a C. Is this one of those properties? He goes, well, some portfolios hold properties for obvious reasons. Perhaps he intoned, a write-off. I says, is this property one of those? He said, no. This property is as important to us as the other in our portfolio. We definitely do have to do some investment, though no investment is planned this year. So then we nicked around the edges and went after maintenance, which they said they are not happy with their current maintenance contract, which will be replaced in 45 days, not approximately 40 days, with a new one, which they're expecting a lot more out of to keep up with the property line. But what I'm finding with large corporations is you have to stay in their face. Be honest. You have to get on the phone, you have to go see them, you have to email them, you have to say, hey, we're still here.
I believe that's true, for sure.
And it's, you know, it's the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And
Have to
that's,
be persistent, you know, and I
and that's-
appreciate that.
that's what we do.
Yeah, and speaking of that, hopefully they will do some things. That's such an important area for Brook Park.
It is.
It's basically our downtown, and it would be really nice if we can get that wow factor that we drive by there and say, wow, that is a nice area.
Right.
Because if it falls short, it's going to reflect on our city. So I think
Exactly.
it's so important that they would work with us and pave the parking lot, put some money into it, maybe some ornamental lighting, and make it more of a featured area. I think it would really be good for Brook Park, and I would like to see them do that. I'm glad you're talking with them. Let them know that those are the things we'd like to see happen. This council and the mayor, I'm sure all of us like to see that happen, and our residents too. It's somewhere that we should really be proud of, and it should be one of the nicer areas in our city. It's, like I said, it's the center of our city, and it's our downtown. So if you can remember those things when you talk to them, that it's really important to us.
I appreciate that, Councilman. Thank you.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Burzio. Mr. Poindexter.
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to the Economic Development Commissioner. I was just looking at your report, and I noticed some good news. With Regency Construction moving in here,
Right.
and Varbros, expanding their place, and then the potential of the trucking company to look for a facility here. Could you make the public aware of some of the details of those 3 items, and then maybe give us an update at where those stand at this point and when those will potentially be completed and take effect?
Regency Construction Services is soon to be the new owner of the Power Sports Building down on Angle Road. They're coming to us from Lakewood, Ohio. They needed room to expand and wanted their own standalone building, both of which they couldn't find to their satisfaction in Lakewood. It is a female-owned business. She founded it as a construction engineer after working for Turner Construction in Columbus for years, right at her home in Brunswick, at her kitchen table, in 1982. She has grown it into a business where she has 40 full-time people and as many as 60 tradesmen. She is union, and she has created millions of dollars worth of beautiful commercial structures for both. She's worked at BW, I believe. She's worked at Bowling Green. She's done work for the state of Ohio. She's done work for, I believe, the county. I have a portfolio in the office. If you stop by, I'd be glad to show you. It's just beautiful work. And she's bringing this into our backyard for a lot of reasons. She likes the ability that she'll be able to have a sign by the highway. That's important to her. Also, for her design team and her architects, they do a lot of product up in Northeast Ohio. So they have an office here, and they have one in Columbus. Smaller office, I believe it's about 10 individuals, including 2 architects. They do a lot of outsourcing. They're on design teams as one of the first choices. So we're looking forward to her. She's coming with her 40 employees, be approximately $1.8 million payroll. So that's a nice number. That plus the profit tax on the back should be welcome here in the community. As far as Varbros, the update I got today was from our building commissioner, Ted Hurst. They've begun the project. So it's at the backside of their property over on Brook Park Road. It's nice to see one of our oldest neighbors in the community expand. It says a lot about their future plans for their plant here in Brook Park. Also creating new jobs, and they have applied for abatement at this point. So I have the form in the office that gets let to the fiscal office for the county once the project is complete, occupancy permit is issued. Okay, so that's moving forward very strong. I've had conversations with their CFO, and they're very excited about that expense. At this point then, we talk Glimpshire, Tim Hortons. The one on Brook Park Road is still a work in progress. It's a company that does work on trucks, brand new trucks, over-the-road trucks, medium-sized trucks for companies. They fabricate them after they are purchased, kind of like a blank. It's kind of like a Roman chariot for trucks, but on a commercial level, where they bring their trucks in, they refabricate them for the needs of that particular vendor who purchased the truck. So they're looking at our 3.3 acres on Brook Park Road. So we're hoping for some good things to come out of that project.
Thank you. Mr. Mancini?
I'll let Mr. Stem go if you want, if it's okay, I'll go last. I might be a little long, if you're all right with that.
Go ahead, Mr. Stout.
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to Commissioner Adams, I know it's not on your report, which is very well prepared, but the old Cuts and Such, it's been unoccupied for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about family-style restaurants and the lack of them, evening hours and weekends, and Posteliers, you can't find a parking spot over there on the weekends. Has there been any interest in the old Cuts and Such property?
Yes, the business next door is interested in purchasing it for expansion for his current business. Right now, it's in the third phase of a underground tank reclamation. A corporation by the name of BJAM is doing the work. It was funded by a grant for just under $100,000 from the state. And we've had them in the office twice already, dealt with them. They're doing a remediation. They're going to be removing approximately 800 square feet of dirt that has been identified as a necessary low-level contamination from the fuel tanks. And at that point, the property will be ready for sale. It's a phase 1, phase 2 process.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Mm-hmm.
Before you go, Mr. Mancini, because you say you might be a little bit long, I'm going to go ahead and ask a question, then I'll give it to you.
Good.
Scott, I'd like to thank you and let you know, great job on this.
Thank you.
One of the questions I have is, you said you're actively working with the Brook Park Chamber of Commerce to engage and market the city of Brook Park by working to create a business-friendly environment. How so, and with whom?
Okay, working with Sharon Zimmer, one of the attributes of the position I currently hold is I'm a member of their executive board. So I've been I've been actively meeting with them at all their chamber meetings, familiarizing myself with the individuals, Jim Drabeck, the president, Sharon, the executive director, and other members. And what we're planning to do is more of an open door approach to businesses in the community. All the businesses I meet, one of the things I leave behind is an application for membership for the Chamber of Commerce and an invitation for them to come to our next meeting and to begin to build that from the ground up. We currently have 89 members. We have approximately 510 businesses. So there's a lot of growth potential there. And that's the way the board looks at it. We're very aggressive in our thought process of gaining new membership. The more members you bring in, the larger footprint, the more effect you'll have on a community. One of the things that turns up in research when you go to like Berea or Middleburg or Strongsville, the first thing people say, have you stopped by our Chamber of Commerce? Have you seen what they're doing in the community? Would you be interested in becoming an affiliate member? And when dealing with those other individuals in the other cities, I can see the enthusiasm and the drive for these neighborhood members, like our city businesses, to join the chamber, to stay in the chamber, to stay in the city. So that means that you're going to have your retention, you're going to have your expansion, and you're going to have your attraction will begin with the chamber, as well as economic development, as well as city council, as well as the mayor of the city. So it's a team effort to get the word out that Brook Park's the place to put your business, not only because of the tax base, the location, but because of the support you're going to receive from other business people in the community.
And you said you're working with the other board members, and I heard you mention Sharon Zimmer, Mr. Drabeck, I believe, and yourself.
Yes.
Are there any other members of the board?
There's Tim Meehan. There's gentleman's name is Joe. His name escapes me. I have the cards back at the office. Small businessman, Starlight. He does logistical work. He sets his contracts by that. Used to be located on Snow Road. I could get you their names and complete information on how to reach them if you're interested.
Great, because I'd actually like to find out how you guys are breaking things down and you're tackling these milestones.
Okay. And what you'd like to do, perhaps the next meeting, I'll send you an email. I'll send you the email they send me, and if you want to join us, if it's possible, be more than welcome to be there.
Great, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Mr. Mancini, the floor is yours.
You want to go?
How long are you
All
going to?
right, no. Go ahead, Mr. Scott, go ahead first.
We have two quick questions. Thanks for coming, Scott. Like I said about Tim Hortons, that's a 55-minute drive to get them apple
Ashland.
fritters, and I don't want to do that. Two pieces of property. I don't know if you or Teddy can answer it. Quest Industry, how are we doing on that? Do you know what
Quest
the progress is?
Industry, they have also started again on their construction. They had some of it started earlier in the year, weather permitting, and they're moving full steam ahead with their growth.
Okay, and I saw some movement. I don't know if you know anything about it. I saw movement at the old S&R Plum Market. Is there something going on over there?
Yes, had a meeting the other day with Abe Abdullah. He is fashioning that into be like a Whole Foods store. That's what he's turning it into. He's working on the inside now. That's why you see the brown paper up and the lease sign came down. He's recreating it from the inside out, and he's going to attract, if he hasn't attracted already, like a Whole Foods, a organic food stand.
Okay. Yeah, I saw movement over there. I just wonder what was
Right.
going on.
Right.
That's all.
Thank you. Mr. Mancini, it's yours now.
I'm ready. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being patient also. Scott, very, very good report. You have this dated February 18th to April 18th, and you're probably going to be on public record. I thought it was very informative. I think you covered about everything there is to cover. Very, very good on the job. And also, I want to give a shout out to the Brook Park Chamber of Commerce. They, as I know their membership isn't like where they like it to be, but I think Mrs. Zimmer, Mr. Drabick are really pushing it to get it bigger. And I think some ways we could be able to help them to do that is we market ourselves, ourselves to our own businesses too, you know, and get involved, and, you know, we'd like you with us. Kind of on that, I mean, I know it gets redundant. We know we have water. We know we have the freeway, the airport, the rail. And it's a great seller, so do other communities. We've known that a long time. I think the issue I have with it is if a company really wants to come for them purposes, they'll come. And I guess maybe we should be, I look at it the aspect of we have vacant buildings, okay? I know we don't have a lot of green space. Our former economic director said that plenty. Some of these empty buildings, Bally being one, are we doing anything, and I know you're doing a lot and you've covered a lot of bases here, but are we doing anything in that aspect of, like, Councilman Stem brought up cuts and such, and that was one of the things to the other economic development director. That's a key spot over there.
It
You
is.
know, you go, a ton of people drive past that, not during the week, but every day. Are we doing anything to promote them, or on the owners that are sitting on some of them? And I do want to get back to Brookade. I thought we were a little soft there, but are we doing anything with them to say, hey, you know, make a move here? You know, you got to do something, as we did with the rental properties back in 2014, 2015, that were sitting with banks. We said, hey, look at, what are you going to do with this?
Right.
Ted could cover that more, but are we doing anything with these empty buildings, with these people sitting on them, maybe for tax write-off? I don't know what purpose.
Yes, we are. As let me reiterate on cuts and such, the business owner next to it is very much interested in it. But because of the underground abandoned storage tanks, they have to be mediated according to state law. And until that process is complete, no movement can take place with that business to be sold.
Right, and again, that's
So
been a
that's that.
problem for a long time
Right,
also.
and it's
I mean-
it's about a third of the way through. That we're moving forward. Next step would involve more soil samples. There's two different state departments that have to approve it, and they're working in unison. The state's been well to work with on this project. They've expended so far approximately $30,000 of the $100,000 towards this goal of being finished. I had the engineer, his first name's Jason, in the house from BJAM running the project. He's also the project manager. He feels that the remediation work will take place in June, and he should be able to get it signed off with sometime in July, August. So at that point, then that property would be able to be moved forward for sale.
Okay.
As far as the post office, which is one of my pet peeves, this is a beautiful location. It's right in the center of the Snow Road strip. Do have an individual interested in it. They're moving rather slow. They're interested in putting a rather unique business in there. They like the location a lot. It would be a microbrewery, and that's what they're looking at putting in there, but there's a lot of hoops to jump. I'm working with them on that, getting all the information from the State Liquor Control Board. Great people down there sent me about 18 pages of paper that said you have to comply with this. So I've met with the young man and his father twice. They own a very long-term restaurant in Parma, They're restaurant people. They own another smaller bar at this point in time, serve food and drink, and they're willing to put that on the mothballs and move into this brewery. And they have their timeline is somewhere in the next 12 months to begin to move that. They've already expended $40,000 on our microbrewery setup to start developing their brews. Their companion food that would be served there, they probably have 12 to 15 items on the menu, and it's wonderful food. I could tell you in confidence, I don't want to put it in public because it's their business plan at this point. Okay.
Okay.
The other thing is Bally's. A couple of good things happen. Bally's, the ownership is dealing with, I'm not saying it's a good thing, but the wind damage to the building brought them out. They approached Ted, and Ted turned him over to me, and I've, on this 10:30 Thursday this week, I have a meeting with the principal.
Got someone coming behind you.
Hey, Ted. I understand. Again, when you're dealing in economic development and business plans and possibilities, there's confidentiality. So it's not an issue I can publicly speak of in detail, but I'll be glad to tell you this, that I am meeting with the principals on Thursday to discuss the near future of Bally's.
Okay, and Scott, that's good, and that's what we want to hear, and I mean, that's the progression the city wants to go.
Right.
Maybe in time here, doesn't gotta be
Right.
tomorrow, doesn't next month,
Right.
middle of summer, on all our vacant lots, vacant buildings, if we,
Right.
you know, get some kind of update maybe on each one.
Right, and that's why,
Yeah,
you
even
know,
if it's
every
not
3-4 months we get together, I can give you more information.
Right.
And as we're going through
right,
it, I can.
because we have enough of them and see who's looking, who's not, what we
Right.
could do. Do they got to come down? Do tanks got to come out? That could be maybe a report within itself. The other thing,
Very
if I
true.
could, and I'm going to finish with that, is Brook 8. Me personally, I think it's a lot of talk candy because I mean, you've had a lot of vacants over there for a long time. A lot of the problems we've had with the, as you say, the park, it's been discussed, the parking lot, keeping it clean, promoting it, things of that. I look at Ridge Park Square. I mean, we're surrounded by Great Northern, Parmatown, you
Right.
got South Park. It's all
Right.
around us.
Right.
Ridge Park Square is an area, I think, out of all of them, probably similar to us. And they seem to do pretty good over there, even on
Right.
Sundays.
Right.
I know you want to go that way. I mean, I'm
Right,
not a
we do.
fool, and I know we have the traffic over on Snow
We
and
do.
Smith, okay, to do that. And I think you said you sat with them owners, and you know, it sounds all nice and that, but I think a little more, we got to squeeze there a little more. That's one of our
Right.
main arteries for shopping. I mean, most people, when they come from into Brook Park, they know where Brook 8 is.
Right.
And I sure hate to see that. I hate to say on Sundays, but even on weekdays, that parking lot, besides maybe, what do you got, Planet Fitness, Mark's,
Right.
the dollar store, maybe not the bank, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
And I think that's an area we really got to work.
Right.
It's a key clog in this city, and it's been a long time, and it's been that way, what you see right now, for a long time. I'm not necessarily putting on you. Whatever you need from us to do with them too is fine by me, because I definitely don't like driving by and seeing, a million empty parking spots. My mom worked in 2 places there, and that was back in the day, and it was almost a place to be up there. And I know a lot of them proprietors are trying to do things up there. A lot of our Mario, Don, Rudy, a lot of them always said, Jim, at management. Gus at the place to be, management. They didn't point the finger, but they just thought that things could be worked a little better, that they could be pushed a little better to do things there.
Right. Well, you know, I'm not going to say the mood after the meeting was one of, oh man, we're glad they came in, and we know they're the right ones to get the job done. It was moreover, well, we got it started, and we got to keep pushing. The mayor's directive to me was, get it done, and it's a priority. I would say it's a top 5 priority right now, if not a top 3 priority as far as economic development. You know, working with the corridors, working with the Ford plant, working with NASA and expansion at the West End, and I think number 4 is Brook 8. And there's no doubt about it. And if we can get them to do that outbuilding restaurant, and we can convert the BP into a habitable place that the people of Brook Park like to go to and bring their families to and utilize, it'll go a long way to begin their reinvestment into the plaza. As a for-profit business, they need to see return on investment. They made that clear. And I explained to them, you have friends in Middleburg Heights, you have friends at Ridge Park Square. He in fact brought up Ridge Park Square because he drove by it and he wanted to know what that was about. We explained to him what it used to be and what it became because the owners of that property turned it into the jewel it is today, much as the same way as the owners of Southland have done with Southland. We didn't go as far as South Park or North Homestead because then your stores and everything begin to change a little bit, but it's a blessing and a curse, the location of Brookgate, because chances of getting an Applebee's there or a Starbucks or some of these bigger names that we've heard of over the years is difficult. Not saying it can't happen, but it's difficult because they have their 5 mile, some of them have 5 miles, some of them have 3 mile. And if you fall inside that DM, you run into a problem with location. They're not gonna do that to their franchisee, or they're not going to do that to their own company-owned store.
Yeah, you
So
do
then
great in
you-
the beginning, they say, and then like in 5 months or
Yeah.
something, you fall off the.
Right, right. But at the same token, what we have to begin to do is look outside the normal box and look at other businesses that aren't in this area, that should be in this area, because people go drive hours to get to their location, and people drive 45 minutes to 50 minutes to get to their location. Why can't we get one here? That's the way I look at it. Honestly, gentlemen, that's the way I look at it every day.
Right,
I
well, I'll
say-
finish with this,
so.
Scott, they got a very good job, and
Right.
I believe this city, like my colleagues will tell you, this city has a lot to offer.
Mhm.
I mean, the services, safety forces, the amenities we have in this town is, you know, look at the glass half full instead of half empty. But
Mhm.
maybe if we do 1, 2 start coming around, hopefully 3, 4, 5, 6 start coming. I think that's what could possibly happen. You know, we see something in England, Holland, we see something up at Brookgate, we see something at the OBP,
Right.
Valleys, what have you.
Right.
Brook Park Road, I think, you know, it might entice others to say, hey,
You start
things.
planting the seeds, exactly.
So I'm finished. Thank you very much. Thank you,
Tom.
Mr. Chairman, everyone for being patient.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Thank you, Mr. Adams. Mr. Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there's no more questions, I'd just like to thank Scott for your report and make a motion that it was discussed.
I just wanted to, real
Mr. Rucker,
quick,
go
I
ahead.
had my hand up. I don't mean to interrupt that. I'll just be 1 second here, Mr. Salvatore. I wanted to thank you also, Scott, for coming this evening. I appreciate it. And I wanted to thank you personally for that BP gas station. That's the very first conversation I had with the mayor. When we sat down, we broke some bread back in November. And that was the focus point I had mentioned to him was Brookgate. And if we can get that gas station changed into something else, it'll change that whole dynamic. So as soon as he took office, I know a letter was sent out, and I appreciate everything that you're doing with that. I think it is I don't think it's a weak plan. I think it's very good, and I think it's strong what you guys are doing there. And whatever you do need for that, you just let me know.
Well, there's 2 steps that'll have to be dealt with. One is it's on a conditional use permit. They've already expired that. And the second is removal of the tanks because it's been more than a year. And that's the step that I'm working with the law department on. And how Kara Horvath's, she's tough. And we're going to get those tanks out. And that's the next steps, because then we can get the building either up for sale or get it ROSed. I've already talked to the county demo fund on it. They said if you can get the occupancy permit away from it, it'll be derelict, and there'll be funds available to the city to knock it down if necessary. So these are the things we have in place, but the property is currently owned by someone else, and we have to hope they'll move along with that and, you know, achieve something as far as a profit from the sale of their property. I think is a pretty good reason to move along.
I
So
think that's
appreciate
a strong,
that,
that's a
Councilman.
strong plan. Thank you. I
Right.
appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. Salvatore, back to you.
Thanks again,
You're welcome.
Commissioner Adams, and the motion that was discussed.
Support.
Motion on the floor. This was discussed, properly
Thank you.
supported. Michelle, please call the roll on the motion.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Move on to item number 3, appropriation of $3,100 for live stream and boxcast payments through June 30th, 2018. This was moved by motion from the April 17th, 2018 council agenda.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Mr. Salvatore. No,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't think we have to appropriate any more funds for that. I think that all we really need is just a motion authorizing the finance director to pay it. I think there's money's already available for that. And I'm not, if I'm not mistaken, I think we already voted to do that, but if it's required, then I'd make a motion that we authorize the payment of live stream and Boxcast not to exceed a total of $3,100.
Right, the vote that we made last week, was to pay the Reynolds for their portion of this. This is for the remainder of it, for the outlay of what the total is, along with for Boxcast.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman, through the chair to the finance director, would a motion just to authorize you to pay it be sufficient?
Through the chair and Councilman Salvatore, I would say yes.
That's what I thought. So I'd like to make that motion. If anybody wants to support it, we can move on it right now.
Support.
Motion on the floor to approve the $3,100 appropriation, properly supported. Discussion? Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yeah.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Motion is approved. So move on to item number 4. The appointment of Michelle Blazak as Clerk of Council for the remainder of the 2018-2019 council term per Council President Vecchio. This was moved by motion from the April 17th, 2018 council agenda.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair.
Who wants to go first?
You can have the floor there, Mr.
Mr.
Salvatore.
Salvatore.
Go right ahead.
Mr.
Salvatore,
Orcutt.
you go
Mr.
right
Salvatore
ahead.
had it first last time. It's yours, sir.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
let's
you
take
very
turns.
much. I appreciate it. Well, I'm glad we're here at this point because this has been a long while. And Michelle, I'm sorry that this actually had to go this long. You understand why we did this. It had everything to do with an ad that was put in the paper, which we had to take in those applications and resumes from everybody. But I just wanted to make one statement. Michelle, thank you very much for acclimating me to this position. You've done a very good job. And I'm certainly sorry that you had to go through this process, but we were just doing it to protect that ad in the paper and protect all the applicants. That's all I have, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mr. Orcutt. Mr. Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to echo some of the comments from Councilman Orcutt, but I think it goes even a little farther than that. And I think we went through some pretty rough times in the last couple of years, and Michelle was stuck in the middle of a few things, and I had an opportunity to talk to her on more than one occasion, but most recently just the other day, and we had a very healthy conversation. She shared some things with me that made a lot of sense, and I understand what went on, and I'm not going to share the conversation with anyone, but I certainly do believe that she certainly should have the position for the rest of this term. And as one councilman, again, I'm not quite sure how the ad got put in the paper or why it got put in the paper. Those kind of things did happen, and we do have a lot of people who thought they were going to get an interview. And I don't know if they are or not, depending on what happens tonight, but if they don't get the interview and we move forward in the direction of continuing the employment of Michelle, then I think that a letter should go out and thanking everybody for their time and energy to put in an application, and let them know that we will keep that application on file. And correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but that application could stay on file for at least a year?
Yes.
That's so. Yeah, let them know that that's the intent, at least of me. And if all of council doesn't agree, then I would do it on my own. But I think that the people who took the time to put in an application should be a part of this process. And if no other person has anything else to say, I would like to make a motion that we move this to the special council meeting called for this evening.
Support.
Hang on, before we move to anybody else, before I entertain a motion, Mr. Poindexter had his hand up.
Thank you, Council President. I just wanted to basically repeat what my colleagues have said so far, but I wish we could have done this quite a while ago. Michelle's put a lot of time in here, and I'd like to see her finish her career with dignity, and I can't wait to vote in such a manner to reflect that. And that's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini.
Michelle, thank you. If Councilman Salvatore made a motion, I'll second it, and we could go on.
The floor is open.
I already supported that.
Mr. Bergio also
Thank
had
you.
his hand up.
Thank you,
before I
Mr.
entertain a
Chairman.
motion.
I don't know anybody else that works as hard as Michelle does. I know I keep her pretty busy with memos and so many other things. She's always there to help. She's there I have any questions. So I'm glad that this is finally coming to a close here too. So that was my comments, and very thankful that she's there to help all of us. So I'm glad we're going to be moving on this. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bergio. So
Mr.
there's a
Chairman?
motion.
If I may, I know there's a motion on
I
the
was going to
floor.
go back to the motion, sir.
But can I make one just comment? I just want to clear one issue up, and not just on something that was said tonight, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. And I just want to comment on my colleague to my right here. I understand that you wanted to move rather quickly and that you were 100% behind Michelle from the very beginning, and I appreciate that. And I think your comments are well taken, but I also applaud council for taking the time to make the right decision after finding out all the facts. There was an investigation that was going on, and it pertained to our council office. And whether you want to accept this or not, our clerk is part of our council business. So it's very important that you talk about protecting the integrity, protect the integrity of not only just the clerk, but also the members of council. And I think by taking that little extra time and doing it the right way, at the right time, coming up with the right answers, with the right results, it's the conclusion that's important. And the only way that I'm going to be a part of the conclusion is if we do it the right way, and I think we did. And I'm hoping that Michelle has the votes. I'm going to guess and say it's going to be 7-0. But I still would like to acknowledge the people that did apply, and they should be treated with respect as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Stem.
Thank you, Council President. I also want to thank Michelle. I mean, when we were sworn in, I just want to let the city know we weren't given a textbook or a guide of how to be a councilman or a council representative, and but we did get the next best thing, which was Michelle, and she helped us out tremendously. And you know, we inherited a tough situation. We did our due diligence. We owed that to the city. We owed it to Michelle, and I'd like to thank her personally.
Well said.
Thank you, Mr. Stem. Mr. Scott.
Michelle and I, we do a lot of talking. I'm with her, we're always talking. People don't know the past 2 years, somebody went through hell. I'm letting you know that, okay? This lady went through hell for 2 years. I've always had her back, and we're good to go. Michelle, you know I'm there, okay? And I'm trying not to bother you every day, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Well, I guess I'll, seeing as we've gone around, Michelle, I would like to personally thank you, and I can only speak for myself, and I can't speak for the remainder of council, but you have, this whole time, through all the trials and tribulations of these first 4 months have been nothing but a rock, and I can honestly say for the job that you do, it is a thankless job, but I personally want to thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate the comments.
Mr. Salvatore, I will now entertain your motion.
Support.
Motion on the floor, properly supported, to appoint Michelle Blazek as Clerk of Council for the remainder of the 2018-2019 council term.
Mr. Chairman, my motion was to move it to
To verbal.
the next council, to the special council.
Okay, so he
meeting
moved it.
called for
I missed that portion. I'm sorry. So motion is to put it on the special council meeting.
When you did it, I seconded
Okay.
before.
Okay. Motion to move to the special council meeting, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Scott.
Yeah.
Motion is approved. It will show up under verbal approval on the special council meeting. Thank you, everyone. Moving to item number 5. Resolution recognizing Marlene Schwind for being nominated as 2018 Citizen of the Year and declaring an emergency. It's introduced by Councilman Scott, per Council President Vecchio.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may, through the chair to sponsor, are you accepting co-sponsorships?
Oh, yes.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, could you poll
Whoever would
council?
like to, I'm going to poll council as to who would like to be a co-sponsor. Please raise your hand. Everybody, including the mayor.
Okay, having said all that, I'd like to make a motion to move to the next council agenda.
Support.
Wait, up. One second.
Hold your motion, sir. Mr. Scott has something to say.
Yeah, I want to thank the committee that selected Marlene Schwinn. When they sat down at the first meeting, I told them it's not going to be an easy choice, and it wasn't. We had a lot of good people, good nominations. The top three, Mr. Bailey can attest to that. We did a lot of discussions. I want to thank the committee, Tim Chornak, William Shepard, Tom DeFore, Dan Eberhardt, Mr. Bailey in the back, Susan Booker, Kelly Versick, and Levain Cates. Like I said, it was tough. I forewarned them. It wasn't going to be easy, and there was a lot of discussion. So the choice was good. I'm glad of the decision, and let's hope we have this same problem next year, picking out the people. Real good nominations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Anyone else, any discussion on it?
Motion
Salvatore.
placed on the next council agenda.
Support.
Great choice. Great girl, great choice.
I don't know who nominated her.
I did last year, and she.
I know you
but-
did.
Yeah, it was a great choice.
That weighed into it.
I miss her at the fields, volleyball, and
Thank you, gentlemen. Motion on the floor is to put this on the May 1st council agenda. Discussion on the motion? Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini. Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Giorgio,
Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
So resolution will be 15-2018 has been approved. Moving on to item 6 under discussion, the capital improvement and economic development fund appropriations per Council President Vecchio, moved by motion from the April 17, 2018 council agenda. Floor is open.
Mr. Chairman?
Mayor.
Mr. Chairman, I have both the police and fire chief here. If council has any questions they would like to ask them, so I'm sure they'd be happy to come to the mic if that's what you so deem.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Mancini.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hopefully we get this wrapped up. To go to Councilman Salvatore, is there anything on that safety building, or are you going to give anything on that?
On the safety building?
On the update on that, yeah, that you remember?
Well, what I'd like to see happen is you're talking about the police or the fire?
Please, please one.
What I'd like to see happen is that we move the improvement money into the roads program and pursue the idea of building a new police station along with the court and some additional jails up on Brook Park Road, what we talked about several years ago. I know that's not going to happen overnight, but I certainly would like to be looking into the possibility of doing that. And I had some dialogue with the mayor on it, and I'm not sure where he's at on it right at this moment, but I certainly don't want to not discuss it, and I'd like to have some dialogue open for everybody to participate. And I'm more than willing to put it on the agenda, and we can discuss it for every meeting if you want. But that's what I'd like to see happen. Any other questions?
No, because you said you wanted to give it and tell us, so you did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I could go to, are you done?
Yeah, unless you have any
The
other.
floor is still yours.
Thank you. All right. To the police, we're gonna go police first. Is that all right?
It's
Yep. To the
Council's decision.
Police
That's-
chief, Chief Foster.
All right, we'll start with police first. I'd like to entertain a motion to have Chief Foster speak on behalf.
Mr.
So
Chairman,
move, Mr. Chairman.
did we go through all the police already, or? Oh, we still have the building, and that's it?
Yeah,
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
yes. Anyhow, entertain a motion to have Chief Foster speak.
The improvements, right?
That's all that's left.
I need support.
Mr. Salvatore made the motion to have Chief Foster speak. You need support.
Support.
Thank you.
Motion on the floor to have Chief Foster speak, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes?
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Perugio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Motion is approved. Chief Foster, if you would, please give your name and work address for the record.
James Foster, Chief of Police, Brook Park Police Department, 17401 Holland Road.
Mr. Mancini, carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to Chief Foster, thanks for coming.
Thank you,
For
Councilman.
being patient tonight, you and the fire chief, I appreciate it out there. And everybody else. To go into the improvements, we've covered the vest, the records room renovations, captain's offices, conference room, things of that sort. I know you don't have a safety director now. Are you using that room that he had for anything else? I remember when I did my ride-alongs that, hearing some of the officers, and they did show me where they gotta do some of their legwork. The phone, it's no bigger than my little cubicle here, if you wanna put here. Is there been any improvements that way, seeing how that, the safety director's no longer there? Is something moved in there? And, what exactly is the needs on these improvements? If you want to cover them again a little bit, I know it's been
Yeah, as far as the officer's room, the safety director space that used to be in there used to be my office also. It's changed through the years, but that's the room that it's always had been my plan when I became chief of police to have the officers use that room. The other room was, you could just barely fit two people in there, and it was cumbersome, and it just didn't make any sense. We were able to get that space, and the officers really have the room and comfort when they do come back to the station to do their reports efficiently and get back out. We just reused furniture that was in the building. We didn't purchase anything. My goal eventually would be to organize it in a fashion with professional furniture and things.
okay. And some of these improvements would help that, or, what exactly are we looking for here on some of your, again, the record room renovation, things of that sort? Captain's offices, conference rooms?
The records room currently, we no longer dispatch from the police department, so that was given over to Parma Regional Dispatch Center. So the space that's in and where the records room is has all the radio console equipment in there. It's all Motorola equipment that's outdated. I wanted to have cabinets in there so that there'd be enough room to store all the reports for 7 years, and for the furniture and carpet to be upgraded. It hasn't been upgraded in over 20 years, maybe longer. I know that they used to smoke in the room. The tile was smoke filled. And when the public does come to the station, the window right there, that's the only thing they see inside the police department is that room. And I believe that the lobby and the report room should look as professional as can be in a reasonable cost.
It's a little dated, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chairman, for now.
Thank you. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through the chair to the chief. Now, you mentioned carpeting. I thought we took the carpeting from the rec project and it was gonna move it over to the police station. Hasn't that been done already, or?
Nothing's been done. We were waiting for the budget to see if there's any furniture that's going to be purchased or available from the current city hall, and then making a change for that. There is some cost to move the equipment out, but we wanted to see what monies were available and then plan with all the known assets to make a plan.
In the filing cabinets, obviously, you're talking about hard copy documents to those what you want to keep and not scanning them and putting them into a computer then.
Correct. We do have a system that does store as much as possible on a server, on a computer, and that it has a backup system off-site. That's been in place, I believe, since 2008. But when a witness, fills out a statement or there's other pieces of evidence, we can still scan it, but we have to keep it with the case file for court presentation. We have to have the original. We can't shred it or anything until that case is over.
Okay, is there any improvements that you're looking at right now that couldn't wait another year or so?
We can wait. We'll make do with whatever we have. We've had plans since the early 2000s of a new building, a renovation, renovation back and forth. We've, and we haven't really pulled the trigger on anything.
Right, I'm with you on that.
Okay.
I've been waiting since the 2001 too to look at a new building on Brook Park Road. When that idea came up, I thought that was the best idea we had in a long time. And I guess I've been criticized for whipping a dead horse, but I got my whip back out, and I'm going to try to bring that horse back to life.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Mr. Orcutt.
Oh, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chief, thanks again for coming. Your first presentation was perfect. This one's better.
Okay.
The questions I had for you were, since you were here last time, we did talk a lot about possibly a new station. And one of the things that I did find out, we are transporting people, females, to North Royalton. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's our. That's where we house females. If they're crowded, then we transport them to Strongsville Police Department.
And when we do that, that takes off at least one officer off the road for that time being, obviously.
At least one. It's not uncommon to have 2 officers go with a female prisoner.
And so that means that may compromise, it obviously compromises the safety of the city because of that. And I guess what I'm getting into is that I know they've probably been talking about it since 2000. I haven't been here since, first day I showed up was January 2nd here. So it's something that I think is important that we need to talk about and possibly get moving on, because those are dollars that we're spending. We have to pay North Royalton to house the females. We're taking people off the roads. We're jeopardizing the people's safety. So I think it was something my colleague, Mr. Stem, said, sometimes when we're taking good money and throwing it towards something bad, we got to look at that and make sure that we're doing the right thing. So, obviously the council, we've said it from the beginning, is, we're working hard and trying to become more efficient as a city. And that's one place where I think we're inefficient, is that building. Extremely inefficient. But I just wanted to make one other comment, and it was about you talking about that forfeiture fund, and you talked about that bulletproof glass. I just wanted to say, I hope it's something that you do get. I mean, see, that fund has some money in there for that. I did some research on it. I saw it for anybody that hasn't seen it. It's a bulletproof glass that's mounted to the driver's side. And obviously with all the, stuff and violence against police officers nowadays, I think this is something very important for our policemen. It had an opening. It has a whole block by where their head would be, but it also has an opening where they can return fire. And when you talked about it, I went and researched it. I think that's something that we really do need as an improvement for our men and women over there. So just wanted to talk about that a little bit, and thank you again for coming.
Yeah, our plan is, thank you, and that support, because once we get new vehicles, we plan on adding that from the law enforcement fund. And then that most of the right equipment, if we purchase, will transfer to the next new vehicle.
So that's
it's transferable.
Oh, it's transferable. Just unbolt it and put it in.
Yes.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orcutt. Mr. Stem.
Thank you, Council President, through the chair to the chief. I don't want to get into it like a long discussion about operations, but with the female arrestee, I understand if the city makes the arrest, we'll transport to Royalton, but how, if it's a warrant pickup, say for another agency, do they meet us halfway or come here?
We'll do everything we can to make accommodations, meet them halfway, or drop off some point. But if agency says that they can't come immediately, they're tied up, it will transport the female to North Royalton right away.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Stem. Mr. Poindexter.
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to the Chief of Police. Will the building improvements help your day-to-day operations, or will they help morale amongst the police officers, or what advantages will these have for your workers?
It'll do both, and then a little bit more. Like I say, obviously, to have a clean place, and a new place always is helpful. But when you have cabinets that don't close any longer, they don't fix them, or it would cost more to have somebody come out to fix them than it would be to replace them. Or the on the tabletops, the vinyl's all chipped off from being there for 30 years, and things like that. There, it does have a little bit of a negative. And again, it's nobody's fault, but I know some of the people have planned for the renovations, and that was the honest anticipation, but then when it doesn't come through, it kind of has a double negative effect, because, they were out planning, picking colors and like that there, because we anticipated getting it, but then it didn't happen, and that's happened like 3 times to them.
Why I want to say I agree with you, and at this point I haven't seen any plans for any new police department, so I'm going to support keeping that money right where it is, and let you guys do the necessary improvements that you feel is necessary to help our police force. I'm opposed to cutting any more from our police. That's where I'm at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poindexter. Anyone else? No. Chief, I have one question. Was there or is there discussion of some of the furniture from City Hall coming over to the police department? And if so, what was it and where would it be going?
It was a little bit of an unknown. We weren't sure what furniture would be available from the tax department, primarily the finance department, and to see what was available, and then to take a look at it, see what would fit over in the police department to be used over there, and if we had to purchase some minor things to accompany that, to maximize the efficiency of what is there. But that was for the officers' room and a couple of the other rooms for the officers. But the records room, primarily, I didn't see anything that would work as far as the shelving. The size and the type mattered in order to get 7 years worth of records there, to compact it. Currently, after 3 years, 4 years, they carry it downstairs. So every year they take 1 year downstairs, and then they carry 1 year's worth upstairs again to shred. So it just make it nice and efficient, so no one's got to carry all the bundles up and down a flight of stairs.
All right. Okay, thank you. Mr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This could go to Chief Foster, the mayor, Service Director Randy. The carpet, is the carpet, I
Mr.
believe.
Mancini, who's it going to? One of the 3. I'm going to give you a choice.
They could
of
raise
one.
their hand, whichever one likes the question. The carpet, I wasn't sure if it was laid in, or is it in storage, or is it gonna go over there? Just a question that I have. Go ahead, Randy.
Mr. Garner.
It's in storage at the service
Need that mic.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Councilman Mancini, the carpeting is in storage at the service garage. Nothing's been determined as where it's going to go to. Building department has the new building department has had their offices all done out of one batch. So as soon as there's some direction, we can proceed with that.
Okay.
Mr. Garner, you said one batch. How many batches are there?
I believe there's 6 or 7 different patterns. Not sure of the quantities of each, so we'll have to accordingly go to room by room on how much there is.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Mayor, if you wanna go,
Mayor, go ahead.
we will be using that carpet.
Mr. Mancini,
though.
I'll handle it.
All right, well, we'll be using that carpet, right?
Mayor?
Do I have the floor, Mr. Mancini?
You have it.
To answer your question, yes. Can I have the floor now?
Mayor, please.
Thank you. The Recreation Center, built in the 70s, went through an extensive renovation in the 90s, just went through another renovation. As you know, I'm a big proponent about reopening the pool, putting in a new roof on, but I received some bad news today from a company I had looking at it and inspecting it to give me a price. And that is, there's no vapor barrier that was ever put in on the walls there when the pool was built back in the 70s. So essentially what's happening is those bricks and that mold that you see and that thing's coming down, that's because of a lack of a vapor barrier that was never there. Now it's taken, gosh, how many years has it been since the 70s to today for all that to come out? But the fact is, it has come out. I say that to say this. I've been over to that police station and fire station, and I have to concur with Mr. Salvatore. I think we need a new building. Now, where it's going to be, I'm not quite certain about that, but I think it's got to be in a location where it can serve, you know, the city in its whole. It can't have a detrimental effect with railroad tracks, where if the police or fire going out, they're going to be stuck by a train. It's got to be somewhere where it's in a location where the trains are not a factor. So what I'm saying is this, gentlemen, and I hope I get a consensus on this in the future, and I think Rick agrees with me on it. I think we need a new police and fire station. I think rather than putting money constantly into that building over there, I think it's almost going to be a recreation center part 2. So that's just my suggestion, and I'm going to reach out and get your ideas. But I think you guys are on the right track in saying a new police and fire station, I think that's needed. I think it's long overdue. I think, Rick, when was that built? Probably in the 70s?
Yes.
So
1970.
1970. And Chief, I don't want to put you on the spot, but how much more, you know, I mean, whenever you do a rehab job, just like we're finding out over at the rec center, you always find something else, you know, when you're doing it. So I think a new police and fire station would be the way to go, and I think that's something that we should discuss. As far as that goes, we talked about car leasing. I think the police do, in fact, I know the police need the cars, and some would say, well, why don't we stagger the leases? And the reason is the state minimum pricing. Chief, maybe you may want to elaborate on that and how much you think the cars are needed.
You know, in January 1st, usually I have a proposal what we need for the vehicles. Sergeant Sominski is the fleet manager for the police department, and he works with the service department, John Pensis, who's basically the city fleet manager, and he knows the conditions of the cars the best. They consult, we speak, and you know, we figure out what we need. You know, it isn't like we just want new cars or anything. In general, you know, police cars, you know, after 10 years old, seem to have problems. That's just the history of it. As a matter of fact, I was here March 28th, you know, speaking to you, and about 3 days afterwards, Detective Clemick's car, the ball joint came out when he was driving it with somebody in the car. His car has it's a 2008, it has 100,000 miles on it. Again, those are the things that happen. We have 3 cars that are that are first line patrol cars. One has 136,000. The other 2 have close to 100,000 on mileage. I like to get those 3 replaced first. I appreciate the funding. I know there's been some dialogue on which cars would be replaced, but depending on the funding, you know, I would go back and consult with John Pensis, the fleet manager, and talk to our, you know, sergeant, and see with the dollars I have, which cars need to be changed first. And again, it's those first line pursuit vehicles that once they get over 5 years old, which these last 3 will be, it seems to be that they're going to be problematic. Anything over the age is going to be problematic. And as far as management is concerned, you know, we work hard at it. When they got in a little bit of economic hardship, you know, because of the recession, we didn't buy. Last year we bought cars in 2008. We didn't buy any in 2009, 2010, 2011, and 2012. We bought the 10 of the 2013s, and those are the ones that are fatiguing as far as pursuit rated cars. We still have some of the 2008s on the road. Those are the auxiliary cars. Those cars constantly break down. I would like to get some of these cars that still have some life to them, you know, 2 of them in particular, some police life to them, and give them over to the auxiliaries, and possibly we have a plan to reuse some of the other ones. But we would like to do this, and as far as the F-150s are concerned, John Pence came to me 2 years ago and wanted us to try them, mainly because they're easier to maintain, and he felt they would be a little more cost efficient. So he's been asking me for 2 years to try them, and we have 2 vehicles that are the van, which is I think a 1999, and a Suburban that was a confiscated vehicle for the accident investigation unit. I believe that's a 2001. So we'd like to get those replaced and try this F-150 out. Again, the publications, we also use that as a reference. There's actually a police fleet management magazine, and we go by what the data is. They have a test in Michigan every year, and then we talk to the other departments. I mean, there's a reason why the Ford Explorer is the #1 police vehicle, because agencies buy it and they like it and they test it. The F-150 is being rated as a high vehicle, so, and it's pursuit rated. So we're trying these things, and we do rotate the vehicles very well, but we're also caught with some deadline dates. After June 8th, Ford will not accept any more orders for the police pursuit package. So I did the timeline. If the funding was approved tonight or soon, we'd have to go out for bids for 2 weeks, get the bids, and then, then we would have to, present it to council. If we have 3 readings of the bids, that would take us to June, I think, 4th. That's the Tuesday. And then I don't know if we have to go through Board of Control after that, but if we did, I don't know if the finance director knows if once it's approved, that would get us past June 8th. All this would be that I couldn't order those cars because we would be past June 8th. And then I have to wait till the 2019 cars to open up. Those time restrictions are every year and they change. And sometimes you can't order them until June. They fluctuate and things. But this year it's June 8th, we cannot order the cars anymore. So all this would be for, a waste of time because I couldn't order them until next year. So it is something that we hope to be able to get past. I had put in for 7 cars, and I believe we need the 7 cars. And I know there's been talk about different numbers, but whatever the funding is what would probably dictate what type of vehicles we get, depending on the dollar amount. The estimate that I gave is based on the 2000 state bidding price of 2018 cars, but the changeover and the wrap, those go out to bid. So there's some fluctuation there. It could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less, depending on the bidding process. So those dollars, it isn't fixed. It could be a little bit more than what I anticipated, but I try to be as accurate as I can when we do this back in, January 1st of the year.
Thank you, Chief. Mayor, anything else?
No. So I guess what I'm saying, council, to summarize what the chief said, we need the cars. And as far as the building goes, I'm willing to work with you, if you're willing to work with the administration, and perhaps get a new police and fire station up somewhere in the city.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do believe, I guess my question is going to be directed to the finance director. We did approve for the police department to move forward on 2 police cars and also the F-150. I think the F-150 is important from a operational standpoint and what it's being used for. I think it's a wonderful idea to have a new one. 1999 is a little bit too old to be doing some of the work that is necessary with the F-150. And I think council also approached the idea of looking at the end of the year, if more money becomes available, to look at purchasing some more vehicles going into 2019. I don't think it's going to require 3 readings. I understand it. Time could be of the essence, but it will not be, because I don't see anybody holding that up. And if I'm wrong about that, anything I said, Mr. Finance Director, I would be respectfully appreciate to be told that I'm not correct in what I said. But if I did say that exactly what we've already passed, I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
Go ahead, Greg.
Through the chair, Councilman Salvatore, my notes for the police department are as follows: 18,000 for the vest and the carrier, 22,000 for the server, and then $40,000 lease payment for the vehicles, which I believe were 2 Explorers and 1 F-150.
And then if I may continue, then council will look at it again towards the end of the year and hopefully be able to pick up 1 or 2 more vehicles at the turn of the year going into 2019. And I hope that you're comfortable with that, but no one, as one councilman, I'm not going to underfund you, and I'm going to be there for you, whatever you need. I think it was Councilman Orcutt brought it up, that it's not a bad idea staggering the purchase of some of these vehicles so that they're all not going bad at the same time. And I support that idea, and I also support the idea of, as money becomes available, to look at it again, and because of your patience and because of your professionalism, to be able to accommodate 1 or 2 more vehicles later on down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Mr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the mayor, I'm glad I asked that question, and I really appreciate your answer, because this is, and pay me speak for council, but this is really the first we've heard of it, really, and I think it's a great idea. I think we're on board for a safety building for these buildings. So we appreciate your answer, and I guess we're all ready to move ahead at any time, or have that
Counsel,
discussion.
if that's the case, let's,
No, I'm going back to Chief Foster right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm glad I got you over there to my left.
Keep
Chief
on task,
Foster,
sir.
100,000 miles, talking to many officers within our community, without, is that the parameter for maybe a vehicle, a police vehicle, that like, maybe it's time, maybe not? I'd like to hear your opinion on that.
In general, that's a good rule of thumb, but when they get that mileage, again, we'll talk to John Pence is the head mechanic, and he'll give us an evaluation that this one's wearing better for some reason, or this one's in there. Like I say, right now we have one that's 139,000 or 136,000, and it seems to be holding up, but we know with that mileage, it's going to be sooner or later that different trannies, the engine, different parts are going to start falling apart. And remember, I think I may have mentioned it, that usually there's a tremendous amount of idling time with the police cruisers. Sometimes it's up to 2 to 1. There might be another 200,000 miles of idling time on the engine. If you're up at an accident, you sit there for an hour while that's running. And again, in the wintertime, you got the lights on, the alternators being drained, the heaters on. There's people in there and things like that there. So it does take a drain on the vehicles.
Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Mr. Poindexter?
Thank you, Council President. I just have a concern about, let's say we're all on board with the new building. I'd love to see a new building. But even if we went through the discussion process really quickly and, then settled on a location, then, put the proposal out to bid and got drawings and had all the discussions, it would be a year to even 2 years before we even broke ground. And then you have the length of time for the construction and then moving them into that building. I mean, it could be 3 years before they even set foot into the building. And in the meantime, they're going to be working in deplorable conditions in their facility. So I'd like to see at least some money go towards improving their workplace, so they have a place to work where they can do the reports efficiently, and where they can come in and have a cup of coffee without looking at coffee or smoke stained ceiling tiles and stuff. I mean, you're a product of your environment. If they have a good nice, clean environment to work in, that would help their ability to do their job that much more. And that's where I stand on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you, Council. I appreciate all the support, and good job, Michelle.
I'll entertain a motion to go back to the regular order.
So maybe, Mr. Chairman.
Support.
Motion on the floor to go back to the regular order. Properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Motion is approved. Entertain a motion to have Chief Mon come up from the fire department if you guys would.
You want to finish this first?
I'm sorry?
Do
Or you want to still finish on police? We're still finished on police, gentlemen?
I should finish police first.
Let's finish. That's fine. So
Okay, we're
continue.
back to the
Mr.
regular order of business?
Yeah, we're back
on
to the
that.
regular order of business. That was approved.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we move that $70,000 into the roads program.
Support.
There's a motion on the floor to move 70,000 additional dollars out of police and fire into the roads program. Properly supported. Discussion on the motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The reason why I'm making that motion is simply this. I think council, in actions of last council meeting, passing legislation to work on Smith Road in the 2019 roads program, I think this program is now, the 2018 program can officially be called the 2018-2019 roads program. And some of the monies that we transfer into there now should be really looked at to be held up in that fund to fund the project that we already passed. There's gonna have to be money in there, so anything going forward that we can find, anytime we can find any extra money, that should be moved into that roads program, because it's not just a 2018 roads program. We're waiting on which roads are worse now. We're looking at a 2-year plan here. And I think council adopted it by councilmanic action by passing the legislation so quickly, and I think it's serious. I'm glad to see that we're gonna be getting Smith Road done. I'm glad to see some of the projects that are gonna be coming forward in 2019. But that doesn't change my opinion that we really need to get some work done this year too. I just keep an open mind as to the amount of money that we may be shifting now is gonna be spread over a 2-year plan. And as far as the police department, and they can certainly have the pick of any furniture they want in City Hall. In fact, I'm sure the mayor would give his desk to you if you wanted that too. You can have his chair too. Just kidding. I don't think he'd give up his chair, but the desk you can have. You can get a new one. But I want to see that you guys are comfortable working in a clean, safe environment too. But I think when you look at the big picture is a new building. And the big picture is being able to say, hey, we're going to take our mayor's court and move it out of the rec center and put it right next to the police station. And the big picture is building enough jails that we don't have to transport prisoners out of the city, that we can accommodate what's going on within our own city. We've always been a city that's taking care of ourselves. People used to follow Brook Park and would, hey, what's Brook Park doing? And they would follow us. And I think it's time that we take that same approach and start taking a leadership approach. Whatever it takes, take that attitude, just like the Cavaliers, whatever it takes to win this championship. I think Brook Park is at a turning point. We're at a crossroads to be able to be saying and doing some of those things. And I'm so happy to hear the mayor is confident and excited about looking at the possibility of building a new police station. And if we build enough jails there, and we can get some contracts with the county to house nonviolent criminals, we may be able to find a way to pay for it. As well as a few other ideas that are floating around on the table. So I'm not trying to take money away to make life miserable for the police. I'm an advocate of the police department. If there was such a thing, 100% is as good as you can get. Well, I'm at 1,000% behind the police department. I'm very proud to say that I know 90% of them, and I'm very proud of the work they're doing. I'm very proud of the way they handled the economic downturn. And I can't say enough about our police department. So I, as one councilman, would do nothing to make more life unsettled for them. I want to do things that are going to make things positive and move in a positive direction. And at the same token, we do need to address the roads too. In fact, if our roads weren't so bad, we might not have to fix that ball joint on that one police car. It probably broke it hitting one of our potholes. So, having said that, Mr. Chairman, could you call the roll, please?
One more. Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Mr. Scott.
Yeah, I just want to confirm we are going to approve $8,000 for the bulletproof vest replacement, $10,000 for the outside vest carrier, $40,000 for the vehicles, and $22,000 for 2 servers. Is that correct? That's
Mr. Single. That is correct. It's 80 of the 150. How you got to the 70.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Mr. Poindexter.
Thank you, Council President. Again, I want to support our police officers now, and I'm going to support them with my vote by voting against this, taking the $70,000 out of their budget and putting it into the roads program. I know our roads need fixed, but you know, our police officers deserve to work in a sustainable environment, and you know, like I said, the proposed new police or new safety building is at least a couple years away, and I'd like to get them through this year. So I will vote no on this, and that's where I stand. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council, I implore on you to give the chief, you know, his $70,000 back. They need the police cars there. I think that's very important. I can't emphasize that enough. I do like the idea of a 2-year roads program, because in 2013, 2014, we only put $500,000 in roads each year. The current budget called for 1.2 million. Next year, we'll be putting over 5 million in a roads program. And a lot of that 1.7 million will be from grants, which is what we need to do. So again, I think a 2-year roads program is good, but I think the police need the cars so they can get around, they can answer calls, and they can secure the city. And finally, it would be a police and fire station. I want to make that clear. And we'll talk about that at a later date. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor. There's a motion on the floor to move $70,000 from police into the roads program, 545, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergeron,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Yes.
Stem, Mancini.
No.
Poindexter,
No.
5-2.
Motion is approved, 5-2. All right, we'll move forward. There's nothing else in police. Move forward to fire. I'll entertain a motion to have Chief Maughan come up and speak if council so chooses.
Motion so made.
Support.
Motion to have Chief Maughan speak, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergeron,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Motion is approved. Chief, please give your name and work address for the record.
My name is Thomas Maughan, Chief of Fire, and the address is 17401 Holland Road.
Thank you. Floor is open, gentlemen. Mr. Scott.
Through the chair to Chief. Hi, Chief. How you doing? Real quick, was this proposal of building renovation proposed in 2013?
That was correct. Actually, I think it was more like 2012.
Okay. Can you please tell me, was it approved?
It was.
Why wasn't it done?
It was right at the point of the election of the last administration. So what would that be, I guess, going back the years? And the mayor at that time stopped the progress. It had been bid, it had been set up. The date of breaking ground was actually determined, and the administration stopped the progress at that point.
Well, was there a reasoning why?
I think he wanted to close that station, and I think he went ahead and did that, didn't he? So it was beyond my scope. I couldn't, you know.
Yeah, and one other thing, we asked for a price breakdown, and the last price breakdown we had was for 2013, so.
Yes, you're right. It was December 3rd, 2013. I'm looking at it right now.
Okay.
It was for $124,850.
It was in 2013. Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Anyone else? Mayor?
Again, the police and fire chief both came, they met myself, the auditor, finance director. I had all departments come in. What they presented to council was a bare bones budget to get by for the next year. And they did that, and I appreciate that very much. And I would just ask that you give the chiefs the money they asked to work with for the next year so that they can protect the residents of this city in the fashion they become accustomed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question.
Mr. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, through the mayor, through the chair to Chief. You put on here, you have for your capital budget request, you had total of PPE for 3 new firefighters. Is that do we have 3 new firefighters that do not have the gear, or is this?
No,
what is this for?
before, through the chair to
Go ahead, Chief.
Councilman Scott. Before the capital budget was requested, the operating budget was requested, and I requested 3 new firemen. In anticipation that during that part of the budget that we would hire new firefighters, I knew that I had to outfit them. So I incorporated that into the capital request. When it was determined that we were unable to hire those 3 new, I removed that, and I don't know if it got removed prior to you getting, the copy of it. Okay. I can tell you the methodology I used in order to determine the need for first the 3 firefighters and then the Station 9 renovation door project and new fire engine and replacement of air bottles and then the Scott Site thermal imaging masks. I used a technique that Director Single actually reminded me of, and I did it unconsciously because I've been chief for 4 years and assistant chief for a couple of years before that. And what I used was a SWOT analysis, where it's some business model where you look in at your own department and determine your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. And what I came to realize is that our strengths are, despite the reduction in manning, the reduction in fire department stations around the city, and the increased call volume, we've been able to preserve the service and increase the service available to the citizens by hiring practices, by education and training. We hired all paramedic firefighters except for one right now, and we provide that care throughout the city. We've embraced UL modern firefighting techniques and using minimum manpower to combat fires in modern fire structures and whatnot. And with our weaknesses, we realize that it's our infrastructure. It's our stations and our equipment is becoming antiquated. Currently, and later you'll see a threat, is that we have a frontline pumper that is a 1996 and one that's a 2002. And what recently happened this morning, actually, is I was advised that the 1996 had a malfunction in this passenger side door where a weld broke and it can no longer be secured and has to be taken out of service. Well, that required that our 1986 Pierce Dash came out of the service department where it's stored, put back into service, and it now protects the west end. It is a 1,500 gallon a minute pump that was made in 1986 when we fought fire with a lot more manpower and less modern fire equipment. And what happened is, or what now happens is that the West End residents have a truck that can only ladder the second story of a building and only pump 1,500 gallons a minute until that other truck is put back into service. And I don't know how long that's going to be because I haven't had that evaluation from John Pensis yet. So that's one of the failings in that SWOT analysis that I use. Was that the frontline pumper is 2002 and its secondary pumpers in 1996. Now we're using a 1986 pumper on the west side. So by renovating Station 9 and the opportunity, part of that acronym of SWOT, is the small capital expenditure, and I realize it's not small, but it is small in regards to the 90-10 split, to rehab that station so that I can get that ladder in front line. That ladder not only can ladder a building that's several stories high and reach 100 feet with elevated master streams, throw more water than any other piece of equipment we have currently, but it can be driven by the 2 men that are out there all the time. It can be maintained, it can be trained with, it can be utilized. That's why the renovation of Station 9 is so important. And we talk about new fire stations, but Councilman Poindexter is absolutely correct. By the time you get one set up where we can respond to all that equipment, it'll be 3 years down the road. So in my analysis, I needed to prioritize, since we didn't have a date of when that station would be built or if it would be built, what could I do to increase or maintain the serviceability of my fire department for the citizens, the safety of the citizens, and the employees and the businesses of our community. And by bringing that ladder into front line, I am able to throw more water, protect businesses, ladder higher structures, and utilize an almost brand new vehicle that's been pretty much storage for 18 years. That's why I put in priority the Station 9 renovation and then the new fire engine, because currently even the modern fire equipment replacing the pumper that's at Station 8 now is too big to fit in that station right now. It will not fit. So by bumping the doors out, and it's a 1958 fire station, and by doing some modern renovation or some upgrades to the conditions that are there with more modern HVAC, electrical, and roof, we could have that frontline fire truck functioning today if they would have went ahead in 2013 and let us do that. That was the plan then, and it's still the plan now. Unfortunately, because of the economic downfall and the mayor's choice to try to close that station, we never went through with those plans. But the plan has never changed.
Anyone else? Mr. Orcutt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chief Maud, thank
Yes.
you very much for coming out again for a second time. Appreciate it. And again, we're sorry if this is an inconvenience to you or Chief Foster. What we're trying to do is exactly what Councilman Salvatore said. We have a two-year roads program that we're facing. It's nothing that we're making up. We're seeing we see an opportunity where there's a lot of money out there from the county, and we're aggressively going after it so that we can only pay a portion of that. With that said, we have to efficiently look through this budget and see what we can shave even more. I, for one, wouldn't support not having your men or police not having the equipment that they need. Okay, and when you came out here the first time, you talked about taking that ladder truck off the parade route and putting it front line. We heard what you said. I also heard you talk about the truck that was over 20 years old and probably only had about 2 more years left. So those were the notes that I made, and I looked at that stuff. And that's the equipment that the residents need now. And they need it more. And don't take this the wrong way. They need it more than new countertop. Okay? This is coming from a Navy CB who would be living in the sand for 8 months out of the year. If we go to a Quonset hut, it was like better than Christmas. Okay? So I understand what you guys are going through. I understand the morale aspect of everything. I really do. I think we can become a little more efficient with our police by consolidating and housing our own prisoners. I can do that, and I don't want to get off track here. But I went through your budget here, and I looked at it, and I remember what you told me about the masonry work and the door that needs to be installed. And looking at that, the one was $24,000 and the one was $21,000. One suggestion that I'd like to make, and it's just one comment I'm making here, and I'll leave the floor open for my colleagues, is that I do think that we do have to give you some capital money. I think the fire department deserves it. They need it. I just wanted you to understand that some of the cuts that we are making are nothing towards your men or your department, but I'd like to say to the council that I think we need to keep an idea of, you know, what they do need right now. There are some needs that the fire department has, and I think we should take that into consideration. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Orcutt. Mr. Stem.
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to Chief, first, thank you for coming again. Does the fire department have any equipment time sensitive that's going to expire this year? PPE, filters, all the good stuff?
So if you'd notice on the capital request list that I have at the bottom, or second from the bottom, is 15 replacement of the SCBA air bottles. I mentioned this the last time I was here. SCBA bottles are the breathing air that's used in the back. They're pressurized to 4,500 pounds of air pressure. Gives us about 45 minutes of breathing time. That really doesn't happen, but in any event, every time you fill a bottle, it expands microscopically and creates cracks. So after 10 years, they don't want to refill them, or they don't want you to reuse them anymore. So we're coming up on replacement bottles. We have probably about 60 bottles in our department, and this is the first set that's we think is budgetarily responsible to start replacement. We talk about alternating vehicles. We alternate our bottles. We try to set up a program for our ambulances, our fire trucks, and all that. And one of the things we do is replace our air bottles in a staggered fashion like that. So yes, that is a time-sensitive issue.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Stem. Mayor?
Thank you. Chief, thanks for coming. I would hope council would fulfill your needs, your budgetary needs. Again, I know you whittled that list down. We spent a lot of work on it, along with the finance director. I appreciate it. I would just like to let council know, through attrition and retirements, we're probably going to have to replace 3 policemen coming up in the next year, and a possibility of 3 firefighters for the same reason. So I just wanted to make you aware of that.
Thank you. Mr. Poindexter?
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to the chief, out of this itemized list, I mean, like, how much of this itemized list of the renovations for Station 9 is absolutely necessary to get that ladder truck over there?
Well, you know, I'm not an engineer, but the way that the project was, and I'm sorry, through the chair to the council.
You're fine.
I'm
You're fine,
terrible
Chief.
at that, I'm sorry. So I'm not an engineer, but what was looked at when this, I was the assistant chief when this project was developed initially, and by looking inside that 1958 fire station, they recognized there are some issues. There's issues with leaks, and one just developed a couple of weeks ago that, of course, is different from the leak that was identified during this program, so that we have 2 leaks now. So
Chief,
they
excuse
thought,
me, are those roof leaks?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And one of them's right over, of course, the computer area, so we have a water chute taking the leaks away from the computer. In any event, some of the roofing estimate of $8,000 was just pulling back like 4 feet from the edges of the building and redoing that, and then hopefully getting the one leak. Another leak now occurred again towards the edge of the building, but I have no idea. I put in 150 because the bid or because the approved amount was in 13. So I just anticipated that it would be up to $150,000 to just do, and I was thinking that we wouldn't get new glazing for the windows or paint job or toilet partition. I was looking at just the bare bones, get the ladder out there kind of bid. And it would have to be reevaluated by engineers. And I was thinking that it would be just under 150 because of inflation. So, yeah, all of that would be looked at. And again, anything that's on there that's kitchen countertops or anything, which is not on here, is not what we're looking for. We're looking for bare bones, get that ladder out there and get it in operation. And some of it was glass block windows because we have single pane windows, so that would help with heating. We have an old-fashioned boiler system out there with a giant fan going. I mean, it's 1958 vintage stuff out there. We have some lighting that we have, I think, 8 or 12, 10-foot old fluorescent tubes on there. So all that stuff would have to be relooked at and then reevaluated and then bid out again. And even the project, if we started today, probably wouldn't be complete until 19 anyway. So just so you know.
Thank you. Mr. Poindexter, you're still?
That's it. I just want to say that, you know, I want to give the firefighters the tools they need, and the chief knows his business way better than I do, and I'm in support of appropriating the full $150,000 for the firefighters.
Thank you, Mr. Poindexter. Mr. Mancini?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief, also to you too, thanks for coming, I appreciate it. I'm sure council appreciate it, everybody in the audience. The mayor brings up a good point about 3 and 3, and you know, that's forbid something else, don't have injury, things of that sort that could possibly happen, and other things that could possibly happen in the city, roof collapse and street collapse, so many things could happen. Kind of that being said, Could you give me the dates on, you said 86 on the one fire truck that you're? could you-
Currently in service at Station 9, or the West End Station, is a 1986 Pierce Dash. And we, down at the service garage right now, we have the pumper that's usually out there is a 1996 Sutphen. And that's the one that's out of service right now. And currently at the main station, we have a 2002 Sutphen pumper. And we have a 2002 ladder that can't be manned.
Okay, that's when you're talking about putting on the West End.
Right,
Correct.
and what we do when we need the ladder is we'd abandon this pumper, and they all jump over on the ladder and respond that to a building, and then the pumper that's out there would then come and be the pumper. Two different tools, but the ladder does have pump capabilities.
Okay, and I want to make this as brief as I can. I try to forget about it. My parents had a fire in 93, 94, and I think it was one of them days you had mutual aid all over, this and that, and I don't want to get into what truck came over there first and the situation that occurred and all that, but, I mean, I hear safety stressed so many times. I mean, you're talking about a truck that's 30 years old, another one that's 20 here. I know we keep a pretty good track, and I thought Chief Foster brought a good point up with the police vehicles. You want to be on top, safe, is new and maybe in best shape as we could get them. And I know we've had some economic issues within our city, Ford plant, housing bust, and the Great Recession there. But why would we be having I mean, it's a question, and I don't want to go off base either, but why would we be having a 30-year-old, a 20-year-old? Am I missing something here? Because I'm going on my 5th term, and maybe I know it was discussed, but like coming at it, I mean, these should be more updated than I would say 30 and 20. Okay?
Correct.
All right.
And I believe that it was always put to the administrations prior to this administration, and it never went anywhere after that. I don't think council even was aware of that.
Okay. The ambulances, and I'm going to leave it at that. The ambulances, what are the dates on them? The beautiful ambulances we have, what are the dates on them roughly?
I don't have them offhand, but I know we bought, the newest one we have was just purchased last year, and then we have a 2011, and then in the 90s,
Remember the one last year? Yeah.
Right. That was the newest one.
Right.
And in that program, what I was trying to do is I found a manufacturer that builds ambulances like tanks. And what happens is the chassis go, and we go with a Ford chassis, but I found that this manufacturer reboxes and puts a new chassis on, takes it down to the studs, but because it's built really well, it can be reused, repainted, new countertops, new stuff inside, but saving the city $40,000 on the purchase of a new ambulance. The problem is that we need 4 of them to start the reboxing program. So we have one, and we have this strategic plan into the future, but unfortunately our plans get upset by changes of administrations and priorities throughout the city.
An economic factor. Also.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Chief. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Chief, I have one question. I don't know if you'll be able to answer it or not, but what is the average life expectancy of a pumper and then also that of a ladder?
They say 20 years. 20 years is the working life of both a pumper and a ladder. After that, it should be retired.
But do they have a usage amount? Is there a percentage of usage?
There probably is, and it's probably an average, but every city runs differently, and every city runs, more and less, and what it's left to is mechanics, professional emergency mechanics that are trained for evaluating those vehicles. And our mechanic, John, I believe, advised the administration that maybe we could get 2 more years out of the frontline pumper.
Have we ever sent? I know down in Valley View there's a major repairer of said equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Have we ever sent any of our equipment down there that you're aware of?
Valley View, I'm not sure. I think we've sent them out to Lodi, and I think we've sent them to Williams, and we've actually driven our ladder back to Sutphen down in southern Ohio. And they did a $25,000 refit of our ladder, and they did all of the new cabling, all the new hydraulics, all the seals for the pump mechanism. And then subsequently, I've had the ladder inspected every year. You have to have it professionally inspected, and was told that this thing's like new. It's just 18 years old. I said, because it doesn't go anywhere. We can't respond it, with the manning that we currently have.
Thank you. Mr. Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Chief, thanks for coming out. I know this is your second trip here, and I really appreciate all your answers. Just a couple quick questions. I'm going to bring up something from the past. I know we had legislation before us at one time to house that vehicle in Middleburg Heights. And I don't know if you remember that or not. And the purpose for that, they were going to maintain it, insure it, respond to any of our needs from Middleburg Heights, as well as protect the newly built addition to the Southwest General, the Penjangu Towers. There was nothing in Middleburg Heights that would go high enough to accommodate any major fire, but that particular apparatus would suffice. I'm not quite sure why we didn't finish that off. I thought it was a good idea at the time. What's your opinion on that?
The reason why we did that is because the closure of the West End station forced us to house that pumper at that station. So we had to have a backup pumper. We had to have our secondary pumper at the main station. And the obvious choice in the state that Middleburg was in, with the lack of a functioning ladder at the time, was, well, I guess you can take my ladder, and if we need you, we'll call you. But it wasn't, it was because of the closure of the West End station that forced the moving of the fire apparatus over this way. They didn't need a pumper, they needed a ladder. And then they bought their own ladder after.
So that truck was always stored at station number 9?
The pumper?
Yes.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay, and I guess I know in 2013, I remember voting for the improvements for that station. I know that for whatever reason, it didn't get completed. The money was appropriated. But in 2014, 2015, 2016, and 2017, was there ever any more dialogue about wanting to do that? Was it ever on any wish list, or was it ever proposed as any potential budgetary item during those 4 years?
I made it an attempt to talk to the mayor about such a thing, and it wasn't on his agenda.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Anyone else? Seeing no one else, thank you, Chief.
I'd like to answer your question from last session. You asked me how many fires did we go on, and I didn't have that on my hand right now, but I wanted to tell you that in the last 5 years we went on 276 fires of all types, and 60 of them were vehicle fires, 29 were cooking fires, and 103 of them were structure or building fires. And that includes all of our MABUS partners, how many times we as a fire service responded to fires with our vehicles to either Brook Park, Middleburg, Berea, Strongsville, whoever needed us. So 276 times we rolled those vehicles out, and over 10,000 times we rolled ambulances out in the last 5 years.
Wow, so thank you. That's
I
about
would-
one,
told
about
you
one
I'd
a week
get
with
back to
mutual
you.
aid. Thank you. Thank you.
All righty.
Mr. Salvatore?
Just
Go
to
ahead.
follow up on how many of those fires were actually in Brook Park?
I don't have that statistic, but I do have the overall fire response statistic.
But on all of our fires that were in Brook Park, did we also receive the same mutual aid respect as we extended to other communities?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Okay.
Council, I'll entertain a motion to go back to the regular order of business.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to go back to the regular order of business, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
All right, we're back to the regular order of business. Moving on to number five, Legislative Committee Chairman Mancini.
Wait, we're not done yet.
We're not done yet.
We're still in that.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. We're back. We're still in six. Yes, in discussion. I was trying to move ahead. So we're back to Capital Improvement and Economic Development Fund appropriations per Council President Vecchio.
I'd like to make the motion to appropriate the $150,000 for the firefighters' Building 9 improvements.
Motion on the floor to appropriate $150,000 for the fire department improvements. Motion dies for a lack of second. Mr. Stem?
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to make a motion to allocate 15 replacement air bottles for the $15,000 that we discussed.
Motion for the, how many air bottles, I'm sorry,
15 replacements SCBA air bottles.
Okay, at a estimated cost of $15,000. So the motion is to appropriate the $15,000 for the 15 replacement SCBA air bottles.
Support.
Properly supported. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, Michelle, please call the roll.
Stem,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yeah.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Motion approved 7-0. Mr. Orcutt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Looking at this budget here, I think Chief Mudd he explained himself very well. I have it here, right here. And I know these are old numbers. Chief needs that ladder truck, and he needs to put it where he needs to put it. I am in support of, when I make this motion, I want you to know that I'm in support of a new fire station and a new police station, and I hope that everybody can get that word out to our firemen and policemen so that the morale goes up. But I do think that we need to, and it's more, I want to make a motion to leave enough money in there so he can do some capital improvements. What does that leave our balance at right there, through the chair to the finance director? Is that 135, sir?
Through the chair to Councilman Orcutt, that's correct.
One second. I'd like to make a motion to move $85,000 from the fire capital and move that into the roads program, 545.
Support.
There's a motion on the floor to move $85,000 from fire to Fund 545 roads. Properly supported. Discussion. Seeing none. Michelle, please call the roll.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Nope.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
6-1.
Motion approved 6-1.
Added that.
Elise. Mr. Salvatore?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That will leave, after the 15 or 16,000 that we just already appropriated, that will leave about $50,000. Is that correct, Mr. Single? And rather than council dictate what they do with that money, I think that they should get together with the mayor and use that money as they see fit. If they want to get the masks, I think that's 40,000. Or if they want to do some minor improvements, but don't do too many, because I really feel comfortable and confident that we are going to come up with a way to fund some new buildings around here. And as you can see by the presentations made so eloquently by our two chiefs, it's a lot more than just buildings that we need. And I think I think safety by itself, separate from the roads, is also going to be looking for some revenue stream that we can permanently fix the problems that we're having in the way of being able to keep up with the times in our safety buildings, our safety equipment, and doing the best we can with what we have, but I think that we can do better. And I think that having that attitude, I think we're gonna go a long way. So I don't wanna handcuff the fire department, say, here, you gotta spend this $50,000 on this. I think they get together with the mayor and decide how that money is to be used best for that department. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Single, where does that put the capital improvement and economic development fund appropriations for now? Are we through everything, do you believe?
Well, I think there still has to be a motion.
No, I mean, as far as looking at everything, though, I mean, have we looked at everything?
Yeah, the only other piece would be in the general government lands, that infrastructure improvements in reserve. But the majority of those monies are, either appropriated or have been approved for appropriation by council action. That the last line on the proposed capital improvement expenditures, almost 385,000.
Okay,
That would be the last piece after the fire department.
thank you. Mr. Orcutt?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair to the finance director, Greg, that fund there has a balance of 274,000 in there.
And the general government lands line, that one?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, yeah, I just want, Mr. Orcutt, through the chair to Councilman Orcutt, I just went back to my office and just looked at it while the fire chief was there. So, to date, almost 180,000 has been either spent or committed to be spent. In addition to that, there's roughly $150,000 to $160,000 that was approved by the last council for the parking lot at the community center. So in order to free up that money, that ordinance would have to be repealed to free up those dollars. So there's roughly $340,000 already committed or spent. So leave a balance of around 40,000 and change.
Okay, so the sheet that you prepared for us, which has been dynamite, it says 384,580. Out of that, we took 110 for a door, for the, I should say the changes to the rec center, correct?
Correct.
And the 160,000-ish for that parking lot is in a different fund?
Through the chair to Councilman Orcutt, it will be spent out of that line item.
Okay.
It
all right.
just, the project hasn't gone out for bid, so no contract has been awarded.
Okay. So at this time, without doing some more legislative action, we can't just take funds from there, we can't take a parking lot that may be 25 parking spots or 24 parking spots and go down to 12 and take some of the monies out of there right now with just a single motion, without taking away the money that the last council had put forward into that,
Yeah, through the chair to Councilman Orcutt, I mean, if
Fine.
you wanted to redesign the parking lot to reduce the cost, I think that would, again, that would be a discussion for another meeting. I mean, you could have that discussion if it was council's desire.
oh, that's good. Thank you very much for that clarification. I appreciate it. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Stem?
Thank you, Council President. Through the chair to the finance director, wouldn't it be a good idea for the city now to, any of our projects that are been appropriated that come under budget, to put a certain percentage of that remaining balance into a separate cost center like 521 to start preparing for our shortcoming of $2 million next year?
Through the chair to Councilman Stem, that would be a great idea.
Council, do you have any thoughts on that?
You're saying anything that comes in under bid, that there's,
No, any project that we
Or under budget.
approved for allocations already that comes under budget, like say for instance, the $10,000 project approved, it comes under, it's completed for 8. Of that 2,000, we put 50% into a cost center savings for $2 million next year that we're gonna be short.
So 1,000 of the 2,000 that would be
Whatever
there is
we
what you're
agree, whatever
proposing.
percentile we agree to, I think we have to start getting ahead of this because it's less money we have to borrow next year, less cuts.
Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we can do that every time we go out to bid, every time it comes in under. If we stay proactive, and it sounds like we're going to, we can move the money from the general fund, the excess money from that account into the roads program or into a special fund earmarked for that purpose. And I guess we could start tonight. If I may, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to address the finance director on that Fund 250. I know you've brought it up a couple of times that that money could be used for payroll purposes for the people working at the rec center, and in particular the program coordinators. If we took the balance of their monies that are due for the rest of this year and moved it into the general fund for the purpose of payroll, that would free up some dollars going forward in the payroll that we may be able to look at doing some other things with it as we approach the fourth quarter of the year. So assuming that it's proper and it's legal and we can do it, I'm gonna guess and say that the remainder of their salaries are probably somewhere around, probably still have another $40,000, $46,000 worth of payroll left for each one of them. If we could move that money into the general fund for that purpose, for payroll purposes, I would make that motion. And I'd like to go one step farther and take a good hard look at the rank and file within that department. I know we have two people doing this, doing the titled, doing the same work. I really would like to see somebody promoted back up into a deputy director, so that in the absence of the director, there's somebody in that building that has the authority to make decisions in the absence of the director. And that building is going to be a community center. It's going to have 100% focus from the entire community. And I do think we need somebody to call the shots that has the authority and the title. So if that's an appropriate motion, I'm going to ask the finance director if we can move that money out and move it into the general fund for the purpose of payroll. I'd make that motion tonight.
Mr. Chairman, through the chair to Councilman Salvatore. I'm researching it now. The auditors will be on site within the next couple weeks, and we're gonna sit down face to face and determine, how those monies can be expended, if the monies can be transferred out of that fund back into the general fund, or if, for example, a salary can be expensed out of the Fund 250. So rather than transfer the monies from Fund 250 back to the general fund, just to see if we can pay a salary or a portion of a salary out of the special rec fund. So when I get clarification from the auditors of what is permissible from state law to do with that fund, I'll advise council.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Continue yourself.
Well, I thank you for your answers and your due diligence. I will hold my motion till we get the final okay through the finance director, and then I would make that motion at the time. But I would also like the mayor and council and well, Mark's not here, but the recreation director to consider bringing the deputy director title back into the rec center. As I mentioned earlier, I think it's important that we have a proper chain of command established as far as the rec center goes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Salvatore.
Greg, I'll wait anxiously for your response to that, and I'll be making that motion, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. And one more thing, if I may.
Continue.
I know Mr. Orcutt brought up wanting to consider moving some money out of that one fund that he said by legislation that we'd have to change the legislation or amend the legislation or rescind the legislation that funds the parking lot. And I'm very much in favor of doing that. And I know the mayor's got a plan to maybe downsize that size of the big parking lot. So if we could Mr. Chairman, if you'd be so kind to place that on the next caucus agenda for discussion, so that we can, in fact, discuss that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. We'll handle that as such. Mayor, go ahead.
through the chair to Mr. Salvatore. Rick, what was that about the parking lot and the mayor?
Well, you had mentioned that we talked last week about the parking lot that was gonna be created over where the tennis courts are, and you said you don't have that in your plans. You're talking about downsizing of a smaller little lot.
No, I didn't say that. I think that parking lot is absolutely essential to, the operation of the new city hall. You've only got 4 spots there in the front for people to park, and the previous council and the previous administration agreed with that, and I find myself in agreement with them. When people come up to city hall to do business or whatever, they need a place where they're not walking a country mile to get to the city hall. Again, right now, you've only got 4 designated spots where the city hall is gonna be. And a lot of our residents are older, things of that nature. Probably a lot of those spots in that area will be handicap parking. However, from the tennis, it won't affect the tennis courts, that grassy area. What I said was, I'm not gonna have parking on the grass, is what I said. Rick, I think that parking lot there, 24, 25, 26 spaces, whatever it is, I think is essential to the operation of the new city hall.
Okay, I must have misunderstood what you said then, and
It happens, Rick, I understand.
do you have some numbers for what it's gonna cost? Or are you going by old numbers, or do we have any numbers?
Well, talking with the engineer, we do have numbers, but again, that's gonna go out for bids. And when we get the bids back, I think then we can make an informed decision.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Mr. Mancini.
Thanks for recognizing me, Mr. Chairman. I do like Councilman Stem's idea of a special savings fund. I think that's a good idea. I think it's something we shouldn't let drop too far off the table. I mean, obviously, we all know what's coming in 2019, and, it was a good idea, so I'm definitely, anything that comes under budget, anything bidded out, that comes under, I think that's definitely a nice little way to look towards 2019 and the issues that we'll be having then. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. Mayor, go ahead.
I find myself also agreeing with council and Mr. Stump's suggestion. I think it's a good one. We've got to look at that $5 million next year for roads, because again, 1.7 of it, someone else is paying.
Sure.
So we need to take advantage of it. And Greg, I think that's an excellent suggestion.
Mr. Poindexter.
Thank you, Council President. Yeah, I think it's a great idea too, Councilman Stem had. However, I don't see where the departments are gonna come in under budget. I mean, we just cut 85,000 from the fire department. Now we want them to come in under the appropriations and save money. I mean, and then we cut 70,000 from the police. I mean, with these cuts, I can't support these appropriation changes. We're cutting from the two departments that are sworn to protect us. And then now we want them to save extra money and put it into a special account. Sorry, I don't see it. I love to sit here and say I can see where we're going to save a penny here and a nickel there, but I just don't see it. We just cut their budgets in half, and I can't support it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Poindexter. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I think what Councilman Stem was talking about is when we go out to bid on a project, and when that bid comes in under the estimates or under the appropriations, the amount that we set aside, I think that's not, correct me if I'm wrong, Councilman, but that's
correct.
what you're talking about, correct? When we come in under budget on a project, kind of roads project, or on a parking lot construction, or anything that we do under that scenario over the next year or so, any money we save by coming in under budget, that money would then go into your special fund.
That's correct, Councilman Salvador. Anything under, we could transfer into this fund, because if we're having this discussion next year at this time, it's not gonna be a very pleasant discussion. So I think we have the opportunity now to get ahead of it. I think we should seize it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, gentlemen. Mayor.
And Councilman, that was my understanding as well, Brian, that it wouldn't be the Customer Police and Fire that would fund this. It would be cuts, say like if we're gonna do Sylvia Road hypothetically, it comes in at $300,000 and we get it done for $250, that extra $250 that we had appropriated would go right into that roads program. Is that my understanding,
That's
Councilman?
correct, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Orcutt?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to just say that there was no vote that the Ward 3 councilman made to undercut police or fire. None whatsoever. I have vision for this city. I think that this city needs to move forward. Like the chiefs have said, it's been talked for years, for decades, and nothing's happened. So I, for one, I supported everything that was going to make them safer out on the roads. And I'll support that any day. What I made my motion for, just to reiterate, was for Wangler and Hummel and all our roads that are bad. All we're doing is a shared department sacrifice here to be able to put some roads down that are brand new. And then now we talked about how we're going to look forward to putting a new station in. I think that's a good thing. It's very positive. And to be honest with you, that might even be just a reverse effect towards the fire and police. They actually may have a morale booster from this conversation. So I just wanted to clarify that I'm not against cutting police and fire whatsoever. This is a shared sacrifice. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Orcutt. Mr. Mancini?
Good eyes. Thank you, Mr.
Gentlemen,
Chairman.
let's speed through this and wrap this portion up if we can.
Let me say that when you come to me. All right, I will do that. Hey, I just want to say to the audience, and I want to say everybody works for the city, and I want to say to the residents and everybody up here, we knew coming into this budget, let's not fool ourselves, it was money. I mean, we knew we were short on money. We knew coming in. And if you didn't, okay, all right. One thing that we say when we say safety, because I know somebody will use it, oh, they did this, they took away from the police. We didn't. We want to give you, Chief Foster, if I don't stand corrected, you're 8 short. You ain't 3 short, you're not going to be 3 more short. So that makes 11, okay? The fire department's short, the service garage is short. We could go on and on. This building's short, okay? But we want to do something with it. We want to tear it down? No, we want to do good things. We knew coming in. Each one of us, when we walk out that door, if somebody don't pull up into my driveway over there, what's the first thing they mention? Streets. My chuck hole, my street, my curb, my apron. You could tell me when to stop at any time.
You can stop, sir. You can
Is that
stop.
the time? I get let it, well, you could make money, you could do it this way. There's no magic wand, sorry. There's no magic wand. And if there was, bring it forward, bring it to us, we'll sit and listen. I love that we're thinking of a safety building. I think that's great. I love what we're doing at the rec. I love what hopefully we're gonna do in this building. And I think everybody else up here does, but we knew it was money. We knew we had tough decisions. That's every one of us. And we're gonna try to make the right ones and do the right things so we could have a viable future in this town, because 219 doesn't look so promising either, but we'll get it done. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you,
for
Mr.
listening.
Mancini. Mr. Scott?
I'll make it real quick. I just want people to know that I probably wore Mr. Single's ear off by the many phone calls. I've contacted department heads. I've spent many hours. My wife can verify all the hours I put on the phone. This isn't something that was just thrown out and thought about in 10, 15 minutes. This council's done a lot of work on here. I've done a lot of work. Everybody up here has done a lot of work. This is not knee-jerk reactions. I totally support the police and fire department, all the safety departments. We just have to put we have to look past the end of our nose. We got to look past it. We got to look down and see what's going to be coming up. 2019, I'm going to be honest with you, 2019 is not going to look pretty. Yesterday I had 3 phone calls on about one street. It's a never-ending issue. Majority of my phone calls are about the roads. So I just want people to know that this council has not just done a knee-jerk reaction. We spent many hours trying to figure out what is the best route to take, trying to protect the city from what happens in 2019. Like I said, it's not going to be pretty. I'm going to forewarn my ward residents. It's not going to be pretty. 2019 is not going to be pretty. It's gonna be pretty, this was a tight budget. 2019 is gonna be an even tighter budget. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Mr. Scott. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, at least I know now why you call me at 2 in the morning, because you're on the phone all day long with everybody else.
Yo.
But I just, again, to the chair, to the finance director, Greg, would you be able to have the legislation ready to go by Tuesday so we can pass the capital portion of the budget?
I'll do my best, Mr. Salvatore. I'll work through it, and I may have to call Michelle on a couple things just to hear the tape again. I think I got pretty good notes here. We still, believe, have to finalize the fire department, though. I don't know that we've taken action on the $50,000 from miscellaneous equipment that I have written down.
Right, I understand that.
If that would be the last piece, I'll work on it tomorrow and Thursday with the hopes of having it to Michelle by Friday morning.
And if I could, Mr. Chairman, through the chair to the mayor, Mayor, would you have your roads program recommendations? Could we have that by Tuesday and figure it out with the new dollars and what we're gonna do for 2019? And so we can have some dialogue and move forward on that for the engineer to be able to go out to bid on the project.
Well, since the road program, as you stated, Rick, is going to be for 2018, 2019, I will sit down with the engineer, and we already have the roads identified, and we will get that to you. I don't know if we can do it by Friday, but we'll get it to you as expediently as possible. And again, I want to say I think your counsel's correct in looking at the 2019 roads program as well, because that's going to be a big one. That's a little over $5 million we're going to be putting in, so we have to be prepared for that. And again, 1.7 we're getting from grants, so we'd be foolish not to do that.
And I understand the original roads program that was presented, and there was a modification made when you were in Detroit. I think it came over by Tony D'Amico about taking one street out and adding another street. And I would just want to meet as one councilman. I think the one street that was added probably shouldn't have been. I think we should maybe look at maybe one or two other minor changes, a little tweaking, and get the most bang for our buck and truly fix the road that really needs it the most. So I just want a little dialogue, if we could, Mr. Mayor, that we could look at some of what you want to do or what you'd like to see done, and maybe give us an opportunity to get that off of our plate as well, and let the engineer do his job.
Thank you, Rick. And again, initially we put 1.2 million in the roads. In the past, some years, 400, 500,000 they passed for roads before this council. But we're going to work with the engineer, we're going to work with the council, and we want to get the roads up to par. It's going to be a long haul.
Yes.
We live in northeastern Ohio, and it's just how it is with everything. But we're going to keep on it, and we're going to be diligent with it. And again, we have a roads idea. We have a rating system, 1 through 10. We're going to follow that rating system, and we'll just go from there, Rick. But we'll work together and get it done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the comments. I think that from our action, I think we're gonna have at least $400,000 or $500,000 that may be able to be placed into next year's road program. At least that's from my preliminary numbers. Hopefully it'll be more than that. But thank you for your comments, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Seeing no one else? Yep, gonna need legislation on this. Yeah, exactly. So we'll need legislation on this. I'm sorry?
We gotta take
Mr.
the
Chairman,
fire.
We're doing the 50,000 for the fire. So what I have for the fire is the SCBA bottles, 15,000, miscellaneous equipment of 50,000. So total capital appropriation of 65,000 for the fire department, and 85,000 will be moved to the 2000 or Fund 545, 2018. We can even call it 2018/2019 Street Improvement Fund.
That's
Is that
correct.
what council's wishes? Okay.
That's numbers I had done.
Mr. Chairman, provided that Mr. Shingle can have the documents ready, I'd like to have that on the caucus prior to the council with the understanding we can move it from the caucus to the council for passage once it's in its final form. And we'll just wait for Mr. Single to see how, let him do his magic and get that legislation ready to go.
Great. I'll entertain a motion for that, or that's in the form of a motion. I'll entertain a second.
Support.
Motion to put on the May 1st caucus prior to council, contingent upon Mr. Single, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yeah.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move to item 5, Legislative Committee Chairman Mancini, finally.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, what I have is an ordinance amending section 331.45A and C of the codified ordinances entitled Texting While Driving Prohibited and declare an emergency. Anything that I'll bring forward, and that's any piece, is, just so we know, is usually it comes from residents or what have you, so I wanted to give a little update on this, if I may, before I go to my colleagues.
Good.
Thank you. All right. If you want to go into the House and see House Bill 95, it's a 82-page, it's a piece that they're bringing forward, Representatives Hughes and Schultz, that deals with this type of situation. I know you all see it as you drive the roads, and you'll see somebody with it right in their face. I'm not saying cell phones up to their ears. We're not saying that. Okay, but many municipalities, and I'll get to them in a minute when I read this, that in our area have different versions of this. Some have cell phones, but most of them do have texting while driving. And it's a big one. I heard when this was introduced last week that I heard somebody out in the audience cheer. And then is this talking to many residents this past week, and I did get on the phone to share to talk to a lot of my heavy hitters. Sorry, I missed a couple that are here tonight, but it was big, you know. And I don't bring things forward unless a lot of residents seem to feel the same way. But in 2016, nearly 14,000 drivers in Ohio crashed while being distracted, and it's something in their vehicle, whether it was electronic devices or with other people. State Officer Patrol Sergeant Ed Major reported that more than 2,000 were killed, and such accidents caused 7,300 accidents and injuries yearly. Distracted drivers reports were up 5% in 2017. In 2016, there were 11, and that's a big jump from 214 and 215, which I believe that area was just like 5 or 6. So that just tells you that the barometer's going up more and more. And scary thought. The Ohio JCs did a report on 18 to 40-year-olds in 2017. 23% of all accidents involved the use of cell phones. 1.3 million crashes a year are directly linked to distracted driving. Never good. 83 of drivers between the ages of 18 and 30 text and drive. They probably ain't alone. 333,000 individuals are injured yearly in distracted driving incidents. This is the Ohio JCs. A lot of other communities kind of picked up on this. As I started hearing more and more people in my ear, I thought maybe it's something that I would look at, and I thought the big thing was maybe 2 months ago, I seen a girl going right down the middle of Snow Road in the SUV with a bunch of kids in her car with that cell phone right in front of her face, and just texting away. It was right on Snow Road, it's probably real close to Snow and Smith. And I just thought, wow, we need to give the officers the tools. And I'll go to our law director in a minute, and for what I understand, and he had just left, Chief Foster was kind of intrigued by this. Teresa Brodowski, Director of Legislation for Affairs for AAA, has said a serious problem not only in Ohio, but through the country. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration did a study, included 10 people are killed every day because of distracted driving. I don't really just say a lot more on that. The study also showed 45% admitted they read and email and text while driving. Again, scary. Avon, Akron City Council, University Heights, Parma Heights, Fairview, North Olmsted, North Royalton, Rocky River. These are some of the suburbs locally that picked up on this. Again, there are different variations. Most of it was texting while driving. Some of them do have cell phones. I think the first offense, some are primary, some are secondary. Like I say, some are texting, some cell phones, but I think the first is 100, second's 250, and the next is 500 with a little couple stipulations between where you go to jail for that. So, and as I know you know, and you've probably heard about the New Franklin woman, I'm not going to say her name, that killed the 2 girls when she was texting. Very sad, and you could see in her mugshot, you could see in her face, it just, devastated. Again, we're probably at some points all guilty of some ways of doing this, and they're probably saying, what's he doing, taking my rights away? But I just thought it was something that we as a community could maybe look at, and I'd definitely like to hear what my colleagues have to say, so the floor is open right now. So, Councilman Salvatore, you're first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is we're amending an ordinance that's already on the books. We have no texting while driving is already prohibited in Brook Park. And just quickly going through this, we're really just amending Section C, if I'm reading this correctly.
Well, yeah, what it does do is give the officer, instead of like saying, hey, you had a tail light out too, I believe they had to have a reason to pull you over besides the texting while driving first. License plate hanging, tail light out, whatever. Probable cause, as my officer on my right just properly explained to me. So it's like that, right? Huh? Yeah, probable cause.
So basically, this is a law that's on the books through the state of Ohio.
Yes.
And you're just giving.
Yeah, I believe it's where we at here. Hard to make it out. State legislator passed by Ohio, ORCS, I think it is, 451111.204. VIZ starts it, but.
And just to summarize it real briefly, you're just giving our police officers a little more teeth to be able to go in there and handle the situation based on a visual sight of someone who would appear to be texting, and they'll be able to pull them over for that purpose.
Councilman Salvatore, I couldn't have said it no better.
Okay, and I just want to warn you that you will probably be the first one pulled over. I've never seen you driving down the street with either, but I haven't had the phone in your ear or looking down, given the impression that you're either looking at a McDonald's hamburger, which I know you don't eat, or texting.
Brandy, just for a minute, can we turn that camera off for a minute, and I will admit something?
I think it's a good idea, Councilman Mancini. I think it's sometimes our police officers don't have enough firepower in the laws to allow them to do their job to the best of their ability, as recognized by some of the police officers that want to transfer out of other communities because they're being held back from providing the opportunity to be able to stop things that they see as that are being wrong. And I would support moving this along to the next council agenda. Unless anybody else has any questions or wants to say anything about it.
I'll support.
Okay, there was a motion, properly seconded, still under discussion. Councilman Poindexter?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'd just like to say, I'm a father of a teenage daughter, and this is important for me. I know, I'm guilty of it myself, but her generation, they came up in the technology age, so they're not used to living without cell phones and technology, and she's of driving age, and a lot of her friends are, and I've seen accidents, and I've heard of stories, and I think if this can prevent at least one tragedy, I think it'll prevent a lot more. But if it prevents even one, it's well worth it, and I fully support it, and I'd like to co-sponsor it too if you're taking co-sponsors.
We will take co-sponsors. We're going to take some co-sponsors. If anybody? All the council, including the mayor. Thank you. Councilman Scott?
Well, I was going to ask like
You're
co-sponsor it, but
in.
no, I'm going to real quick through the chair to Mr. Mintz. Funny thing is on this, believe it or not, I approached Chief Foster on this a few weeks ago about asking about this, if we have enough, if our patrolmen will be able to, go out and really use this as a tool. And I also had a couple other things too, but he said, yeah, I mean, being right now it's a secondary offense. You can't do nothing unless there's another, probable cause. Like you said, this is real good. And like I said, you just beat me to it. I did talk to,
Councilman Scott, call me, we could co-sponsor at any time.
yeah, I'm there, buddy.
Okay, thank you. And on that, I did talk to some officers, some in Brook Park, some outside. And, one resident today actually made a good point that one of the officers made in time. You'll probably be able to do everything by voice, hopefully, with these new systems they're put in 5 years. So, actually it's a resident on Edgehurst. And he was very happy today that the hot patch truck was out too, Mr. Service Director. So, thank you, Mr. Scott. Councilman Bergio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, we know how we all love our devices. Everybody does, and the temptation is to get on your device, whatever it is, texting, phone, whatever, to save time instead of pulling over. But we've all also seen cars that are weaving or slowing down for no apparent reason. We know that because they're texting, and it's a scary thought how many people use the devices and puts everybody at peril, not only themselves but some innocent people. So I think it's a good thing to have this extra teeth into this legislation, and hopefully it'll save some lives too. So
Good point, very good point.
Thank you for bringing this forward.
Council Bergio, no problem. Council President, Mr. Stem, do you want to go for Council President? Back to you.
Mr. Mancini, I want to say I commend you for bringing this forward and making this addition. Myself having obviously a brood of children that with a couple of them driving, a couple more coming, and all having cellular devices. I drive quite a distance myself for my employment, and I see on a daily basis the ramifications of people's texting and cell phone actions, and it's horrible. And again, having my own children with it, I want to see them be held accountable for those actions. I'm also thankful that new vehicles have hands-free devices for this case, but it's also not a deterrent for them paying attention to the road, defensive driving and understanding it. But again, thank you. Great idea.
Well, thank you, and thank Council. Councilman Orcutt.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to thank you also for bringing this forward. I think one good thing that might happen out of this is somebody may get pulled over, and then they'll think twice. And that actually may be the thing that saves a life. So, great job with this. I appreciate you bringing this forward.
No, I thank you, and I thank all of Council. Very important issue, and hopefully that one person gets the word out. Hey, in Brook Park, here's what they're doing, because I know other communities are doing it too. So if there's not anybody else, there's motion been made, properly seconded, under discussion. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Salvatore, Orcutt.
Yeah, before we had discussion.
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem.
Yes.
Okay. This ordinance has been moved, will be moved to the next council agenda. Okay, I thank council, thank everybody. Go right to my second piece, a resolution authorizing and directing the placement of a veteran parking space in municipal parking lots and declaring an emergency. And this was again introduced by me. I had brought this forward previously, and how I kind of got this, it was Jimmy Presley, a friend of mine, said something, boy, it was the middle of summer, they're not using the Purple Hearts. Well, let's be honest. Unfortunately, we've lost a lot of our great Purple Heart veterans, and he says, well, what about another space? And so I thought about it, and Law Director Carol Horvath did a great job on both these pieces, just so you know. And if it was proper to do it, I'd say give her a round of applause. And she did a good job on this one, because Councilman Salvatore brought up when I first brought this up that, maybe we better check with Purple Hearts. And the law director did. And one of them was all for, yeah, do what you, but another one says, you know, you're probably better off keeping it. And talking to some of our good veterans in the city, you know, and I've mentioned it before, Dan Eberhardt, Marty Healy, and many others, and I don't want to sit here and run names off, but are great veterans who've sacrificed so much. Jim just put one next door. You know, because I'd seen Brooklyn did it, but they did it the right way. They did Veterans, Purple Heart, you could park in one. We didn't get to that. We did Purple Heart first. And it was, you know, I was at the rec one time during the basketball Saturday, and I seen an old veteran parking way back by that paper dump, taking that long walk from them dumpsters all the way, you know, into the gym. It's a long walk. That's a long haul, you know, and he didn't have a handicap, you know. And I just thought, boy, there's got to be something we could do. So me and our law director, Carol Horvath, you know, she did a lot of work. We did a lot of work on this and thought, well, let's put one right next door. So, and that's what I'm proposing to do. So I'd like your support on this. I'm sure our veterans would like our support because they do deserve a lot more than this. So this is open for discussion. Councilman Salvatore's got his hands up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, good idea, Councilman. Good idea. I just have a couple quick questions. I guess I would address the first one to our law director. Madam Law Director, what would be the penalty for somebody who's not a veteran parking in a veteran spot?
Through the chair to Councilman Salvatore, I think we had some extensive discussions about that when we were looking at doing the Purple Heart veteran space back in 2016. And I believe after considering it, we thought perhaps the best would be to have no penalty. That doesn't mean that you couldn't revisit it now if you wanted to, and see if that would be appropriate for this type of space. The thought to me that someone who is not a veteran would have the chutzpah to park in a spot that is designated specifically for a veteran, to me is just kind of terrible. And we could certainly take a look and revisit that if that would be council's pleasure. I know we did consider that with the Purple Heart veterans, and we decided it'd just be too complicated to enforce.
What I like to do is, as one member of council, I like to look at things and ask myself, what if? I mean, if someone was driving and was not a veteran, but had a passenger who was a veteran, they would certainly qualify to use that spot, just in the event of a handicap spot. If you had your mother, your father, or an aunt or uncle, or grandmother, and they were disabled, if you had their placard, maybe not your car, but your passenger is certainly entitled to use that spot. So I just want to make sure that when we get into something like this, that we don't open up a can of worms. I want to see it. I want to see this happen. I think it's a good idea. I just want to cross all the T's and dot all the I's, because sure as we're sitting here, something's going to come up. And how do you write a ticket? What's the ticket for, and what's the fine? And what happens when you go to mayor's court? So I think that as much as I really want to, in fact, I'd like to even co-sponsor it if the chairman provides that.
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure that we're ready to pass this in all aspects. So if you could research that for us before we make the final vote on next week.
I certainly will do so.
And that we're prepared to have some type of a whereas in there that describes what it is, if it's a minor misdemeanor, and what would be the fine, and how would we give, I know the last resolution, we gave our police officers the necessary tools to pull somebody over who would appear as if they are texting. And I want to be able to, how would they adjust this? And that's I just want to make sure that we're given the necessary tools to the policemen, and also providing the court system with the tools to how are they going to deal with it in the event that someone is parking in there that is not a veteran and does not deserve to be parking there. Other than that, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a good idea.
Thank you, Councilman Salvatore. Kind of, one of the things I thought when we had talked about this before, and I'm shame on me for not remembering, but somebody really had said it, was somebody on this dais, that, parking in a veteran, I mean, it's parking in a handicap's real bad. Parking in a veteran is just as bad. You would hope people would use a lot better judgment, and hopefully we have them right up front so everybody sees who's doing it. And then I kind of thought we could kind of go parallel with that, you know, first offense 100, second 250, but that's, I'm with you on that. I mean, there's gonna be no problem with that, so. If we could go back and do a little research on that, we bring, committee, bring it right back out, but anybody else have any discussion on it?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman
if I
Salvatore?
may, I'd like to make a motion, we place it on the next caucus agenda prior to the council meeting, so that, to give the law director a chance to review that, then we can always move it forward.
Okay, well, let's do one thing first, because I got 3 things here. Is there gonna be a second on that?
Support.
All right, it's still under discussion, and I'm gonna go to Council President Vecchio. You don't wanna go, or,
Just, Mr. Salvatore had mentioned about co-sponsorship,
and that'll be 3
so,
co-sponsors. You better get that hand up, Councilman Scott. Okay, everybody, Michelle? Okay. A motion's been made to place back into the caucus meeting next week. Properly seconded. Clerk, call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter.
Yes.
Okay, placement of veteran parking space in municipal parking lots will be placed on next week's, I believe, caucus meeting prior to council. And I'd like to thank our law director, Carol Horvath, on all the help on this. And I thank council. Thank you very much. It's all I have, Mr. Chairman, and the Legislative Committee. It's all yours.
thank you, Mr. Mancini. I'd like to entertain a motion to recess the caucus meeting and go into the special meeting so we can get that handled and come back for the executive session that we have last, so that way we can, our residents can go home.
Support.
So made.
I'm sorry? You made the motion?
So made, yeah.
Support.
All right, so motion on the floor to recess the caucus meeting, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Stem,
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Salvatore.
Yes.
Motion is approved. You guys want to go right in, or you guys want to take 2 minutes?
No.
What do you guys
Take
wanna
2
do?
minutes.
Let's go right in, get it out of the way. Okay, we're gonna go right into into the special meeting of council. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 24th special meeting of council. Notice was sent to Councilmember Stem, Mancini, Orcutt, Scott, Bergio, Poindexter, Salvatore, Council President Vecchio, Mayor Gamella, Law Director Horvath, Finance Director Single. Everybody was notified from the special meeting of council as a council meeting. We have currently roll call of members. Michelle, would you please call the roll?
Scott,
Here.
Bergio,
Here.
Orcutt,
Here.
Stem,
Here.
Mancini,
Here.
Poindexter,
Here.
Salvatore.
Here.
If everyone would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next item is remarks from the audience on items that pertain to this agenda only. We actually only have one now.
Correct.
And that would be the appointment of Michelle Blazak as Clerk of Council for the remainder of the 2018-2019 council term. So anybody who would like to come to the podium and speak on that, you're free to do so. Seeing no one.
Fix that typo.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
That typo on there.
just, if I
There's a
may.
typo, yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Single.
Just quick question. Does council have the authorization to approve payment of an item at a caucus meeting, or does it have to be done in a council meeting? Because in the caucus meeting, we had the $3,100 for the live stream, and there was a motion to approve the payment, but I don't know if that can be done at a
I thought council.
Mr. Chairman,
It's verbal. Please go ahead.
in the past, if we use past practice, there has been expenditures approved at a caucus meeting based on the ruling of the chair. In fact, my memory has served me so well. I remember when Michael Mello was the president, he even approved a few. So I know we've done it before. If you would prefer that it goes to a council meeting based on your recommendation, then it's on the agenda. We could do it again if you want to.
Let's simplify it. Let's
If
simplify
you
it.
want to simplify it, we approve it twice. That doesn't mean you get 6,200. You still only get 3,100.
Let's simplify it and reverse order here. We're going to go back to, under verbal approval, item number 1, which is also the appropriation of $3,100 for live stream and box gas payments through June 30th, 2018. Remarks from the audience is open for this. Seeing no one, I'll
I'll repeat my motion from the caucus. Motion to authorize payment for live stream and broadcast, not to exceed $3,100.
Support.
motion to approve properly supported. Discussion on the motion?
Just for clarification purposes, is that still the $100 per night rate?
Yes, that was approved last week as $100 per night.
I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Okay, yep, okay.
So the motion is to approve the appropriation of $3,100 for live stream boxcast payments not to exceed the $3,100 through June 30th, 2018, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter.
Yes.
That motion is approved. Item number 2, accept the motion on that also.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Salvatore.
if I may, I would just like to let council look. I mean, my agenda says that we're only approving 2018. And I know Mr. Stingel wanted us to vote twice for the 3,100, and it appears that we're going to vote twice on 2018, but I'm assuming it's a typo, and I would like to say that, make a motion that we amend that so it properly suits what we're going to try to do here this evening, 2018 and 2019.
I'll support that amendment.
And I'm going to stay steadfast on my prediction of 7-zip. I did make my crystal ball tonight, so.
Motion to amend to say 2018, 2019 instead of 2018, properly supported. There will be no discussion on this motion. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Scott,
Yes.
Motion is approved.
That was one of my calls to Michelle.
In my email. Mr. Salvatore.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask the two members of council who did went down into the trenches and did a lot of work on the investigation and then did a lot of, provided council with a lot of necessary answers to some very serious questions. I would ask those two gentlemen to come forward and make the motion and support it and then call the roll.
Make a motion to appoint Michelle Blazak as clerk of court council for the remainder of the 2018-2019 council term.
I'll support that.
Motion to approve the appointment of Michelle Blazek as clerk of council for the remainder of the 2018-2019 council term, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Scott,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Bergio.
Yes.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Motion is approved
Mr. Chairman?
as per the prediction of Mr. Salvatore with a 7-0 vote. Mr. Salvatore.
I was going to ask you, it's always appropriate, could you please tell me what the vote was?
Once again, to reiterate, that was a 7-0 vote, sir, in favor of.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Support.
Motion to adjourn properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore,
Yes.
Bergio,
Yes.
Mancini,
Yes.
oh my goodness, Scott,
Yes.
Orcutt,
Yes.
Stem,
Yes.
Poindexter,
Yes.
what did I miss?
I think that was everybody. Motion is approved. Special council meeting is adjourned.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Salvatore.
motion to go back to the caucus meeting.
Support.
Motion to go back to the regularly scheduled caucus meeting, properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Poindexter?
Yes.
Mancini?
Yes.
Stem?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Motion is,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman,
motion is approved. Mr. Salvatore?
motion to take a 3-minute recess prior to going into executive session.
Support.
I'm gonna overrule that and ask for 5, because there's multiple people.
If
So
you want
let's
to be
take
2
5.
minutes late for the meeting, be like this.
The guy second that gives you a 5, okay.
Motion to take a 5-minute recess, properly supported. Oh, you know what? Let's do that. Let's do that. Let's go ahead and go into executive session.
Hold on, Counsel.
Counsel, please. Yeah, let's do this. Hold on. Counsel, this time I'll take a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of sale or purchase of property.
So made.
Support?
Yes.
Motion to go into executive session is properly supported. Michelle, please call the roll.
Mancini?
Yes. It was him, these two.
Stem and
Okay,
Poindexter.
my bad.
I rescind my vote.
Okay, we're starting over. We're doing
I rescind my
STEM.
vote.
Yes.
We're doing, who else?
Poindexter's.
Poindexter?
I talked enough.
Mancini?
Yes.
Salvatore?
Yes.
Scott?
Yes.
Bergio?
Yes.
Orcutt?
Yes.
Okay,
Motion is approved.
yes.
Shall return.
See you in the back room, guys.